There's a person in your life right now who's draining you. You feel it in your chest every time their name lights up your phone. You've convinced yourself it's normal, that all relationships require sacrifice. But here's the brutal truth. You're not being loyal, you're being used. And the worst part? You already know it. You stay because leaving feels harder than suffering. You stay because you've invested years, shared memories, made promises. You stay because walking away feels like failure. But what if I told you that your inability to leave isn't love, it's fear dressed up as commitment? Every day you accept less than you deserve, you're teaching the world exactly how to treat you. You're setting a price tag on your peace, your time, your soul, and you're selling it cheap. The question isn't whether you deserve better. The question is, when will you finally believe it? This audiobook isn't about burning bridges. It's about stopping yourself from drowning while trying to save someone who refuses to swim. It's about recognizing that walking away isn't cold. It's the most compassionate thing you can do for yourself. Welcome to How to Walk Away from Anyone Who Doesn't Value You, a guide for everyone who's ever stayed too long, given too much, and received too little in return. This audiobook was born from those dark moments when I finally asked myself, why am I fighting for someone who wouldn't even walk across the street for me? By the time you finish this audiobook, you won't just understand why you need to walk away. You'll know exactly how to do it, and more importantly, you'll finally feel worthy of doing it. So take a deep breath. What you're about to do is hard, but necessary. Painful, but liberating. Lonely at first, but ultimately the path to the most authentic, peaceful version of your life. Chapter 1. The High Cost of Staying Where You're Not Valued. Let me tell you about Sarah. Sarah spent 6 years with a man who forgot her birthday 3 times, who never once asked about her dreams, who checked his phone during every dinner they shared. When she finally worked up the courage to leave, her friends asked, "What took you so long?" She answered honestly, "I didn't know the cost until I'd already paid it." That's the insidious thing about staying where you're not valued. The price isn't a one-time payment. It's a subscription fee that auto-renews every single day, quietly draining you until you wake up one morning and don't recognize the depleted person staring back at you in the mirror. This chapter is about counting the real cost, not in dramatic explosions or obvious abuse, but in the 1,000 small cuts that ultimately bleed you dry. The invisible taxes on your soul. When you stay in a relationship, romantic, friendship, family, or professional, where you're undervalued, you don't just lose time. You lose pieces of yourself you can never get back. First, you lose your energy. Not the kind you restore with a good night's sleep, but your life force, that spark that makes you excited to wake up in the morning. You start operating in survival mode, spending your emotional resources managing their moods, anticipating their needs, walking on eggshells to avoid conflict. There's nothing left for your own dreams. Author and researcher Brené Brown once said, "Choose discomfort over resentment." But when you're undervalued, you choose neither discomfort nor growth. You choose a slow, simmering resentment that poisons everything it touches. Second, you lose your standards. What you tolerate becomes your baseline. The first time someone dismisses your feelings, it's shocking. The 10th time, you've learned not to share them. The 20th time, you've convinced yourself you're too sensitive anyway. You've adjusted downward so many times that you can't even remember what you originally wanted from a relationship. Third, you lose your time, the one resource you can never earn back. Every month you spend hoping they'll change is a month you're not available for someone who already sees your worth. Every year you invest in someone who doesn't invest in you is a year stolen from your own growth, your own adventures, your own life. And here's the cruelest cost of all. You lose your self-trust. When you know you should leave but you don't, you start believing you can't trust your own judgment. You second-guess every instinct. You dismiss every red flag. You become a stranger to yourself, and that internal betrayal is more painful than anything the other person ever did to you. The opportunity cost of settling. Economics teaches us about opportunity cost. What you give up when you choose one option over another. When you stay where you're not valued, the opportunity cost is the life you could have lived. Every dinner spent with someone who barely listens is a dinner you didn't spend with someone who hangs on your every word. Every weekend accommodating someone who never accommodates you is a weekend you didn't spend exploring your passions, building your business, or simply enjoying your own company. The question isn't just, is this relationship bad? The question is this relationship preventing something better? Warren Buffett, one of the world's most successful investors, famously said, "The difference between successful people and really successful people is that really successful people say no to almost everything. That includes saying no to relationships that don't serve them. You can't attract the right people while you're occupied with the wrong ones." It's not just about romantic relationships. This applies to friends who only call when they need something, family members who treat you like an emotional dumping ground, and colleagues who take credit for your work. The physical toll you're ignoring. Here's what most people don't talk about. Staying where you're not valued makes you sick. The stress of managing a one-sided relationship manifests in your body. The headaches that won't go away. The stomach issues your doctor can't explain. The exhaustion that sleep doesn't fix. The anxiety that wakes you at 3 a.m. Your body is screaming what your mind is trying to rationalize away. A study from the Journal of Health and Social Behavior found that negative social interactions have a more powerful impact on physical health than positive interactions have on promoting health. Translation: one toxic relationship can undo the benefits of 10 healthy ones. Your body keeps the score, even when your mind makes excuses. The ripple effect on everything else. When you're drained by someone who doesn't value you, it doesn't stay contained to that relationship. It spills over into everything. You're less patient with your kids. You're less creative at work. You're less present with friends who actually care. You're operating at 50% capacity in every area of your life because someone who gives you 10% is taking 90% of your emotional bandwidth. Jim Rohn, the legendary motivational speaker, said, "You are the average of the 5 people you spend the most time with." If one of those 5 people constantly diminishes you, they're dragging down your entire average. What you're really afraid of. So why do we stay? If the costs are this high, why don't we just leave? Because there's one cost that seems higher. The cost of walking away. We're terrified of loneliness. The guilt. The possibility that we're making a mistake. The fear that we're giving up on someone who might change. The shame of admitting we chose wrong in the first place. We tell ourselves, at least I have someone. At least it's not physical abuse. At least they need me. But here's what you need to understand. At least is not a standard. At least is what you say when you've stopped believing you deserve actual happiness. Maya Angelou, who knew a thing or two about resilience, said, "When someone shows you who they are, believe them the first time." But we don't, do we? We wait for the second time, the 10th time, the 100th time. We collect evidence of their disregard like badges of martyrdom, proof of our endless capacity to forgive. What we call patience is often just fear wearing a halo. The breaking point. There's usually a moment. Not dramatic. Not cinematic. Just a quiet Tuesday when you realize, I can't do this anymore. For Sarah, it was watching her partner scroll through Instagram while she talked about her father's cancer diagnosis. For my friend Marcus, it was the 5th time his business partner claimed credit for his ideas in a meeting. For another friend, Jessica, it was realizing she'd spent her entire birthday alone because her best friend forgot. Again, the breaking point isn't when things get worse. It's when you finally realize they're never going to get better. Not because they can't, but because this person has no motivation to change. Why would they? You've already shown them that you'll stay regardless. The math doesn't lie. Let's do some simple math. If you're staying in a relationship that makes you unhappy 70% of the time, and you have roughly 50 years left to live, you're choosing 35 years of unhappiness over the temporary discomfort of leaving. 35 years. When you frame it that way, walking away doesn't seem like the scary option anymore, does it? Staying becomes the horror story. Your pivot point. This chapter isn't designed to make you feel bad about staying as long as you have. You did the best you could with the information and self-worth you had at the time. This chapter is designed to show you what continuing to stay will cost you, so you can make an informed decision about what comes next. The truth is, you can't afford to stay where you're not valued. Not because you're weak, but because you're human. And humans need reciprocity, respect, and recognition to thrive. As we move into Chapter 2, we're going to explore the psychology behind why intelligent, capable people stay in situations that diminish them. We're going to pull back the curtain on the mental patterns keeping you trapped. But before we do, I want you to answer one question honestly. If your best friend described your relationship to you, if they told you they were being treated the way you're being treated, what would you tell them to do? Would you tell them to stay? To keep trying? To accept less than they deserve? Or would you look them in the eye and say, "You deserve so much better than this? Now take your own advice." Chapter 2. The psychology of staying too long. You know you should leave. Your friends see it. Your family sees it. Hell, even strangers can probably sense the weight you're carrying. So why are you still here? Why do your feet feel cemented to the floor every time you think about walking away? Here's the uncomfortable truth. It's not about them anymore. It's about the prison you've built in your own mind. And until you understand the bars keeping you locked in, you'll never find the key to get out. There's a famous experiment you've probably heard about. Scientists placed fleas in a jar with a lid. The fleas jumped and hit the lid over and over, until eventually, they stopped jumping high enough to hit it. Then the scientists removed the lid. You know what happened? The fleas never jumped out. Even though they were completely free to leave, they'd learned their limitations. They'd internalized their cage. You are not a flea, but you might be living in a jar with no lid, convinced you can't escape. This chapter is about understanding the psychological mechanics that keep intelligent, self-aware people trapped in situations they know are harming them. Because once you understand the why behind your staying, the how of leaving becomes infinitely clearer. The sunk cost fallacy. The trap of time invested. Let me introduce you to one of the most powerful psychological forces keeping you stuck. The sunk cost fallacy. This is the principle that we continue investing in something. Whether it's a failing business, a terrible movie, or a one-sided relationship. Simply because we've already invested so much. We think, I've already given 3 years of my life to this person. If I leave now, all that time was wasted. But here's the brutal economic truth that applies just as much to relationships as it does to investments. Past costs are irrelevant to future decisions. The 3 years you've already spent are gone whether you stay or leave. The only question that matters is, will the next 3 years be any better? Daniel Kahneman, Nobel Prize-winning psychologist, explains it this way: the sunk cost fallacy keeps people for too long in poor jobs, unhappy marriages, and unpromising research projects. We're throwing good years after bad, trying to justify the years we've already lost. Think about it. If you met this person today, knowing exactly how they'd treat you, exactly how they'd make you feel, exactly how much effort they'd put in, would you choose them? If the answer is no, then you're not staying because the relationship is good. You're staying because leaving feels like admitting you made a mistake. But here's what staying actually admits. Not that you made one mistake in the past, but that you're choosing to keep making it every single day, going forward. Intermittent reinforcement. The slot machine effect. Now let's talk about why you can't seem to let go, even when you know you should. There's a reason slot machines are more addictive than vending machines. With a vending machine, you put in money, you get your snack. Predictable, reliable, boring. With a slot machine, sometimes you win, usually you lose, but you never know when the next win is coming. That unpredictability? That's what keeps you pulling the lever. The same principle applies to relationships where you're undervalued. If someone treated you terribly 100% of the time, you'd leave immediately. But they don't. They're cold for 3 weeks, then suddenly sweet for an afternoon. They ignore your texts for days, then send you a heartfelt message at 2 a.m. They criticize you constantly, then occasionally give you the validation you've been desperate for. Psychologists call this intermittent reinforcement, and it's one of the most powerful behavioral conditioning tools in existence. Those occasional moments of warmth, those rare instances when they actually see you, those become more valuable than gold because they're so scarce. You start organizing your entire emotional life around getting that next hit of validation. B.F. Skinner, the father of behavioral psychology, discovered that intermittent reinforcement creates the strongest behavioral patterns. Patterns that are incredibly difficult to break. You're not weak for struggling to leave. You're up against one of the most powerful psychological forces in human behavior. That person isn't just failing to value you consistently. They're accidentally, or deliberately, employing the exact pattern that keeps you most addicted to them. Cognitive dissonance. The mental gymnastics of justification. Here's where your brain starts working against you. You're an intelligent person. You have standards. You know what healthy relationships look like. So how do you reconcile the fact that you're staying in a situation that violates everything you claim to believe about how you deserve to be treated? Enter cognitive dissonance, the mental discomfort you feel when your actions don't align with your beliefs. Your brain hates this discomfort so much that it will do almost anything to resolve it. And often, the easiest solution isn't to change your behavior. It's to change your beliefs to justify your behavior. So you start telling yourself stories. They're just going through a hard time right now. I'm probably expecting too much anyway. All relationships require sacrifice. They show love differently than I do. It's not that bad. Other people have it worse. These aren't truths. These are defense mechanisms your brain constructed to protect you from the painful reality that you're accepting less than you deserve. Social psychologist Leon Festinger, who first identified cognitive dissonance, noted that people will go to extraordinary lengths to maintain consistency between their beliefs and actions, even if it means deceiving themselves. Every day you stay, you have to create a new narrative to justify it. And the longer you stay, the more elaborate that narrative becomes, until you've built an entire mythology around why this relationship makes sense. You've become the author of your own imprisonment. Trauma bonding. When pain becomes connection. Now we need to talk about something darker. Trauma bonding. This happens when you form an attachment to someone specifically because of the cycle of negative treatment followed by positive reinforcement. It's common in abusive relationships, but it exists in subtler forms in many relationships where you're consistently undervalued. The pattern works like this. They hurt you through neglect, criticism, or dismissal. You feel pain. Then they offer comfort, attention, or affection. Your brain releases oxytocin, the bonding hormone, and associates them with relief from the very pain they caused. You become bonded not despite the mistreatment, but because of it. Dr. Patrick Carnes, who extensively researched trauma bonding, explains, the abused person begins to develop a negative self-image and low self-esteem. The effect of the powerful person is now to be the rescuer or the protector. You start believing that the occasional kindness they show you is special, more meaningful than consistent kindness from someone else would be, because you had to suffer for it. You've confused intensity with intimacy, chaos with chemistry. And here's the truly insidious part. Normal, healthy relationships start to feel boring by comparison. You've been conditioned to associate love with struggle, so when someone treats you well consistently, your brain doesn't recognize it as love. It feels too easy, too stable, too safe. You've become addicted to the roller coaster, convinced that the valleys give meaning to the peaks, not realizing that healthy relationships are consistent elevation, not dramatic ups and downs. Fear of the unknown versus discomfort of the known. Human beings are wired with a negativity bias. We're designed to fear potential threats more than we appreciate current comforts. This served us well on the savannah when that rustle in the grass could be a lion. It serves us terribly in modern relationships. Here's how it plays out. The relationship you're in is painful, but it's predictably painful. You know exactly what flavor of disappointment to expect. You've developed coping mechanisms. You've adjusted. But leaving, that's stepping into complete uncertainty. What if you can't find anyone else? What if you're lonely? What if you regret it? What if they were actually the best you could do? The devil you know feels safer than the angel you don't. So you stay in a situation that's making you miserable because at least you know the dimensions of this particular misery. The irony is that you're so afraid of potential future pain that you're guaranteeing yourself definite present pain. Author Anais Nin captured this perfectly. And the day came when the risk to remain tight in a bud was more painful than the risk it took to blossom. The question isn't whether leaving is scary. It absolutely is. The question is, which is scarier? The fear of the unknown or the certainty of more years exactly like this one? The identity crisis. You've made this relationship who you are. Here's something nobody warns you about. When you've been in a relationship long enough, especially one where you're constantly trying to earn someone's affection, that relationship becomes part of your identity. You're not just you anymore. You're the person trying to make this work. Your entire sense of self has organized around this dynamic. You've become the understanding one, the patient one, the one who sees their potential, the one who doesn't give up. Walking away doesn't just mean losing them. It means losing the version of yourself you've been. Who are you if you're not the person who loves them? What do you do with all that time you spent analyzing their behavior, managing their moods, hoping for change? What happens to the future you'd planned, the stories you'd told friends, the identity you'd built around this relationship? The psychological term is identity foreclosure. When your sense of self becomes so intertwined with a particular role or relationship that imagining life without it feels like imagining not existing at all. But here's the truth. You existed before them, and you'll exist after them. In fact, you'll exist more fully, more authentically, because you won't be contorting yourself to fit into someone else's limited perception of who you should be. Learned helplessness. When you've stopped believing you have options. Remember those fleas in the jar? There's a more technical term for what happened to them. Learned helplessness. Psychologist Martin Seligman discovered this phenomenon in the 1960s. When subjects, in his original experiments, dogs, later the principle was applied to humans, were repeatedly exposed to negative situations they couldn't control, they eventually stopped trying to escape, even when escape became possible. If you've tried to address the issues in your relationship repeatedly and nothing has changed, your brain starts to believe, nothing I do matters. I have no control. This is just how it is. You stop advocating for yourself. You stop expressing your needs. You stop believing that your actions could create different outcomes. You've learned to be helpless. But here's what you need to understand. The helplessness was learned, which means it can be unlearned. Just because your actions haven't changed this person doesn't mean your actions can't change your situation. You have one option you probably haven't fully exercised yet. The option to leave. Not to change them, but to change your circumstances entirely. The hope addiction. Confusing potential with reality. Let's talk about hope, because hope is beautiful until it becomes a weapon against yourself. You're not staying because of who this person is. You're staying because of who you hope they'll become. You've seen glimpses of their potential. You've imagined the relationship you could have if they just tried a little harder, cared a little more, and saw you a little clearer. You're in love with a future version of this relationship that exists only in your mind. Motivational speaker Tony Robbins says, trade your expectation for appreciation. But you've done the opposite. You've traded reality for expectation, and you're living in a state of permanent disappointment because reality never measures up to the potential you've imagined. Here's the hard truth. Potential means nothing without action. They've shown you their potential in moments, sure. But they've also shown you their priorities by what they choose to do consistently. And consistently, they choose not to value you the way you deserve. Betting your happiness on someone's potential is like buying a lottery ticket and planning your retirement around it. Yes, technically you could win, but building your entire future around that possibility? That's not hope. That's a delusion. Breaking free from the psychology that binds you. Understanding these psychological patterns doesn't immediately free you from them. But awareness is the first step. You now know that your past investment doesn't justify future suffering, sunk cost fallacy. Those occasional good moments are keeping you addicted, intermittent reinforcement. You've rewritten your standards to justify your choices, cognitive dissonance. You might be bonded through pain, not love, trauma bonding. Fear of uncertainty is keeping you in guaranteed misery, fear of unknown. You've confused this relationship with your identity crisis. You've stopped believing you have power, learned helplessness. You're in love with potential, not reality, hope addiction. Knowledge is power, but only if you use it. The next time you find yourself making excuses for staying, ask yourself, which psychological pattern is talking right now? Is this my authentic self speaking, or is this my conditioned response to avoid the discomfort of change? Maya Angelou also said, do the best you can until you know better. Then when you know better, do better. You know better now. In Chapter 3, we're going to get specific. We're going to identify the exact red flags you've been explaining away, dismissing, or straight up ignoring. Because you can't walk away from what you refuse to see clearly. But for now, sit with this discomfort. Let yourself feel the full weight of the psychological chains you've been carrying. Because you can't unlock a prison until you admit you're in one. Chapter 3. Recognizing the red flags you've been ignoring. You've been collecting evidence for months. Maybe years. Little moments that made your stomach drop. Conversations that left you feeling hollow. Patterns you noticed but immediately explained away. You've got a mental file cabinet stuffed with red flags, but you've labeled it, things I'm probably overreacting about. Stop lying to yourself. Your gut has been screaming the truth while your heart keeps hitting the snooze button. It's time to finally listen. Because the red flags you ignore today become the deal breakers that destroy you tomorrow. Let me tell you about a concept from safety engineering called normalization of deviance. It comes from the investigation into the Space Shuttle Challenger disaster. Engineers noticed foam debris striking the shuttle during launches. It wasn't supposed to happen, but it kept happening. And because nothing catastrophic occurred immediately, it became normal. Acceptable. Just how things are. Until one day, it wasn't just debris. It was a disaster that killed 7 people. Your relationship has normalized deviance too. Things that would have horrified you on a first date have become your Tuesday. Behavior that would make you tell a friend to run has become your baseline. You've adjusted to dysfunction so gradually that you can't even see it anymore. This chapter is about denormalization. We're going to look at the red flags, the bright, blazing, impossible-to-miss signals that someone doesn't value you, and we're going to call them exactly what they are. No more euphemisms. No more benefit of the doubt. No more excuses. Red flag number 1. Your needs are consistently treated as negotiable. Let's start with the most fundamental sign. When you express a need, and it's treated like a request they're free to decline. I'm not talking about wants or preferences. I'm talking about actual needs, emotional, physical, relational needs that are baseline requirements for your well-being. You say, I need you to follow through when you make plans with me. They hear, she's being demanding again. You say, I need open communication about things that affect us both. They hear, he wants to control everything I do. You say, I need to feel like a priority sometimes, not an afterthought. They hear, she's so needy. Here's how you know if this is happening. Do you feel guilty for having needs? Do you preface every request with apologies? Do you minimize your own pain to make it more palatable for them? Author Cheryl Richardson wrote, "If you avoid conflict to keep the peace, you start a war inside yourself. That war is the result of treating your own needs as negotiable. In a healthy relationship, both people understand that meeting each other's core needs isn't optional. It's the foundation. When someone consistently treats your needs as inconvenient preferences they can take or leave, they're showing you exactly how much they value your well-being. Which is to say, not much." Red flag number 2. The effort is wildly disproportionate. Picture a seesaw. In a balanced relationship, both people put in roughly equal effort. Not identical. People have different love languages and capacities, but there's a basic equilibrium. You both show up. You both try. You both invest. Now picture a seesaw where one person is jumping up and down on their end while the other person is barely sitting on theirs, mostly scrolling through their phone. That's your relationship. You're the one remembering birthdays, planning dates, checking in, asking about their day, supporting their dreams, meeting their family, adapting to their schedule. You're doing the emotional labor of two people while they're barely doing the work of one. And here's what makes it even more insidious. They've probably complimented you on it. "You're so thoughtful. You're so caring. I don't know what I'd do without you." They've framed your exhaustion as your virtue, your disproportionate effort as evidence of your good character. But let me ask you something. Have they ever tried to match your effort? Or have they just gotten comfortable letting you do all the work while they reap all the benefits? Business consultant Peter Drucker said, "What gets measured gets managed." Try this. For 1 week, actually track the effort. Who initiates conversations? Who makes plans? Who asks questions? Who remembers important details? Who makes sacrifices? Write it down. Look at the numbers. Then try to justify the imbalance. You can't, because there is no justification. There's just someone who's perfectly happy taking everything you give while giving nothing in return. Red flag number 3. You're constantly explaining away their behavior. Listen to yourself talk about this person to your friends. Actually listen. How many times do you say, "They're just stressed right now. They had a difficult childhood. They're not good with emotions. That's just how they are. They don't mean it like that. You don't know them like I do." You've become their PR representative, their defense attorney, their full-time explainer. You spend more energy justifying their behavior than they spend modifying it. When you love someone, you shouldn't need a translator to explain why their actions are acceptable. Their behavior should speak for itself. Your friends shouldn't be side-eyeing you every time you describe your relationship. Here's the test. If you removed all your explanations and justifications and just described their actual behavior, the things they do and say, without your interpretive commentary, what would it look like? "They forgot our anniversary." Not, "They forgot our anniversary but they've been so busy at work." "They criticized me in front of their friends." Not, "They criticized me in front of their friends but they don't realize how it sounds." "They canceled on me again." Not, "They canceled on me again but something important came up." Strip away your narrative and look at the raw data. Because you're not describing reality. You're describing the story you tell yourself to make reality bearable. Oprah Winfrey once said, "When people show you who they are, believe them." But you've added a footnote, "unless I can think of a really good reason why they didn't mean it." Red flag number 4. Your concerns are met with defensiveness, not discussion. Healthy conflict resolution looks like this. You express a concern. They listen. You both explore the issue. You both work toward a solution. You both grow. Your conflict resolution looks like this. You express a concern. They get defensive. They make it about how you expressed it, not what you expressed. They turn it around so now you're comforting them. The original issue never gets resolved. You apologize for bringing it up. You've learned that raising concerns costs you more than suffering in silence. Watch what happens when you try to discuss something that hurt you. Do they immediately counter with something you did? Do they claim you're always criticizing them? Do they shut down emotionally and give you the silent treatment? Do they accuse you of being too sensitive or dramatic? Do they make you feel guilty for even mentioning it? Psychologist Dr. John Gottman, who studied couples for over 40 years, identified defensiveness as one of the 4 horsemen that predict relationship failure. When someone can't hear your pain without making themselves the victim, they're showing you that their ego is more important than your emotional safety. You should be able to say, "That hurt me," without it starting World War III. If you can't, you're not in a partnership. You're in a hostage negotiation where your feelings are the ransom. Red flag number 5. They're interested in you only when it's convenient. Notice when they reach out. Notice when they make time. Notice when they suddenly remember you exist. Is it when they need something? When they're bored? When their other plans fell through? When they want validation? When it serves them? And notice when they don't reach out. When they're busy with other priorities. When they're with other people. When they have better options. When you need them. You're not a partner. You're not even a priority. You're a convenience. An option they exercise when all their preferred options are unavailable. Author Mark Manson writes, "In any relationship, the person who cares less has all the power. And this person has weaponized your caring. They know you'll be there whenever they decide to show up, so there's no incentive to show up consistently. You've taught them that your time, your attention, your love are always available. No effort required. You're like a 24-hour diner. Always open, always serving, never closing for your own rest. Meanwhile, you're structuring your entire life around their sporadic availability, canceling plans in case they might call, keeping your schedule flexible in case they might have time, staying up late in case they might text. You're a sure thing. And sure things don't get valued, they get taken for granted." Red flag number 6. There's a pattern of broken promises and unmet expectations. They say they'll call. They don't. They promise to change. They don't. They commit to plans. They cancel. They say you matter. Their actions say otherwise. Once is a mistake. Twice is a coincidence. 3 times is a pattern. 30 times is who they are. But you keep believing the words instead of the actions because the words are pretty and the actions are painful. You're suffering from what psychologists call confirmation bias. You're cherry-picking the evidence that supports what you want to believe and ignoring the mountain of evidence that contradicts it. Author Steve Maraboli said it perfectly. "I'm not upset that you lied to me. I'm upset that from now on I can't believe you. Except you do still believe them. Every single time. Because the alternative, accepting that their words mean nothing, is too devastating to contemplate. So instead, you make excuses for why this time was different, why circumstances conspired against them, why they really did mean it even though they didn't follow through. You've become an expert in creative accounting, cooking the books to make their track record look better than it is. But credibility isn't about intentions. It's about consistency. And this person has consistently shown you that their promises are fiction. Red flag number 7. You feel like you're always auditioning. Do you ever feel like you've fully earned their affection? Or does it feel like you're constantly trying to prove your worth, one performance at a time? You're always waiting for the other shoe to drop. Always wondering if this is the thing that will finally make them leave. Always trying to be more understanding, more accommodating, more low maintenance, more perfect. You're not in a relationship. You're in a perpetual audition for a role you've already been playing for years. In a healthy relationship, you feel secure. You know that having a bad day, expressing a need, or showing your authentic self won't threaten the foundation. You're valued for who you are, not for how well you perform the role of who they want you to be. But you don't have that security. You're walking on eggshells, constantly monitoring their mood, adjusting your behavior to keep the peace, suppressing your true self to remain acceptable. Brené Brown teaches, Authenticity is the daily practice of letting go of who we think we're supposed to be and embracing who we are. But you can't be authentic around someone who only values you when you're being who they need you to be in that particular moment. Red flag number 8. They dismiss your feelings. You tell them something hurt you. They tell you you're overreacting. You express feeling neglected. They tell you you're too needy. You say you feel unappreciated. They list everything they've done for you, making your pain a transaction. Your feelings are treated as problems to be managed, not information to be respected. Emotional invalidation is soul-crushing. When someone repeatedly tells you that your emotional reality is wrong, you start to distrust yourself. You begin to think maybe you are too sensitive, too demanding, too much. But here's the truth. Your feelings are data. They're information about your experience. And in a healthy relationship, that information is taken seriously, even if the other person didn't intend to cause harm. "I didn't mean to hurt you" should be followed by, "But I can see that I did, and I'm sorry. How can we prevent this in the future?" Not, "I didn't mean to hurt you, so you shouldn't feel hurt." The first response respects your reality. The second one denies it. Guess which one you've been getting? Red flag number 9. Your relationship exists only in private. Are you a secret? Not officially, maybe, but functionally? Do they post about every aspect of their life except you? Do they avoid situations where they'd have to introduce you as significant? Do they keep your lives carefully compartmentalized? If someone is proud to have you, they show you. They integrate you into their life. They want the people they care about to know the person they care about. But if you're kept separate, kept quiet, kept casual despite your investment, that's not privacy. That's strategic ambiguity. They're keeping their options open by keeping you hidden. You deserve someone who's proud to claim you, not someone who's carefully managing who knows about you and how you're described. Red flag number 10. You're unhappy more often than you're happy. This is the simplest metric and the one most people ignore. How do you feel most of the time? Not in the rare good moments. Not when they're being the person you wish they always were. But on average, week to week, month to month. Are you happy? Do you wake up feeling peaceful or anxious? Do you feel energized or drained? Do you feel valued or tolerated? Do you feel loved or just not yet abandoned? Relationships should add to your life, not subtract from it. The baseline should be contentment, with moments of frustration, not misery, with occasional relief. If you're unhappy more often than you're happy, you don't have a relationship problem that needs solving. You have a relationship that needs ending. Trust the pattern, not the exception. The reason you've ignored these red flags is because they're not absolute. There are good days mixed in with the bad. There are moments when they do show up, do follow through, do make you feel valued. You're judging them by their best moments and judging yourself by your worst. But relationships aren't about the peaks. They're about the average altitude. And your average altitude is below sea level, slowly drowning while you're focusing on the occasional breath of air. As poet Warsan Shire wrote, "You can't make homes out of human beings." Someone should have already told you that. In Chapter 4, we're going to explore why good people, people like you, accept bad treatment. Why your kindness has been weaponized against you. Why the very qualities that make you valuable are the same ones keeping you trapped. But right now, I need you to do something difficult. Look at this list of red flags and count how many apply to your situation. Not with explanations. Not with justifications. Just count them. If you counted more than 3, you're not in a rough patch. You're in a pattern. And patterns don't change unless someone changes them. The question is, will it be them or will it be you? Chapter 4. Why good people accept bad treatment. You're not stupid. You're not weak. You're not broken. So why are you accepting treatment that you'd never tolerate for someone you love? Why are your standards for everyone else sky high while your standards for yourself are buried underground? Here's the painful truth. Your greatest strengths have become your greatest vulnerabilities. The empathy that makes you beautiful, the loyalty that makes you reliable, the hope that makes you resilient. Someone has turned those virtues into chains. And until you understand how your goodness has been weaponized against you, you'll keep wondering why being a good person keeps getting you hurt. There's a phenomenon in nature called the helper's high. When you do something kind for someone, your brain releases dopamine and oxytocin. You feel good. You feel purposeful. You feel like you matter. Now imagine someone who's learned, consciously or unconsciously, that they can trigger that high in you by occasionally accepting your help, occasionally validating your efforts, occasionally making you feel needed. You're not staying because you're weak. You're staying because you're wired for connection, and someone has hacked your wiring. This chapter is about understanding why your best qualities, your compassion, your loyalty, your belief in people's potential, have made you a target for those who don't value you. We're going to dismantle the false belief that you're accepting bad treatment because something is wrong with you. The truth is simpler and more painful. You're accepting bad treatment because you're good. And someone is taking advantage of that. The empath's curse. You feel their potential more than your pain. Let me guess. You're an empath. You read people easily. You sense their wounds, their insecurities, their unmet needs. You see beneath their defenses to the hurt child inside them who just needs to be loved the right way. And you've convinced yourself that you're the one who can love them the right way. This is the empath's curse. Your ability to feel deeply, to understand why people are the way they are, has become the reason you tolerate behavior that damages you. You've made their backstory more important than your current story. They treat you poorly, and instead of thinking, this is unacceptable, you think, they must be struggling. They fail to show up for you, and instead of enforcing a boundary, you make space for their limitations. You've turned empathy into enabling. Dr. Judith Orloff, who studies empaths extensively, warns, empaths often stay in draining relationships out of compassion or the desire to help, even when their partner continues to disappoint them. Your empathy is a gift, but only when it includes empathy for yourself. When you can feel everyone's pain except your own, when you can forgive everyone's flaws except your own, when you can see everyone's potential except your own, you've turned your superpower into your kryptonite. Here's what you need to understand. Understanding why someone hurts you doesn't mean you have to keep letting them do it. Their trauma is an explanation, not an excuse. Their potential is irrelevant if they're not actively pursuing it. You can have compassion for their journey and still remove yourself from the path of their destruction. The loyalty trap. You've confused commitment with captivity. Loyalty is one of the most valued traits in American culture. We celebrate it in sports, in military service, in business, in friendship. Ride or die. Through thick and thin. Never give up on people you love. But somewhere along the way, you confused loyalty with accepting mistreatment. Real loyalty is mutual. It's reciprocal. It's, I'll stand by you while you grow, not, I'll stand by you while you repeatedly hurt me and make no effort to change. You've been taught that leaving makes you a quitter, that boundaries make you selfish, that having standards makes you judgmental. So you've stayed, and you've called it loyalty, when what it actually is self-abandonment. Author Cheryl Strayed wrote, "The most terrible and beautiful and interesting things happen in a life. You don't get to choose your own wounds, but you do get to choose whether you keep standing in the line of fire." Loyalty to someone else should never require disloyalty to yourself. And staying with someone who consistently devalues you is the ultimate act of self-betrayal. Think about it this way. If you had an employee who showed up late, did mediocre work, disrespected your time, and showed no interest in improvement, would you keep them employed for years out of loyalty? Or would you recognize that loyalty to a failing employee is disloyalty to your business? Your life is your business. Your well-being is your bottom line. And you're keeping someone employed in your heart who's been underperforming for years. That's not loyalty. That's fear of change dressed in virtue's clothing. The savior complex. You need to be needed. Let's get uncomfortable for a moment. Are you staying because you love them? Or are you staying because you need to be the one who saves them? There's an identity you've built around being the person who doesn't give up, the one who sees the diamond in the rough, the one who loves unconditionally, the one who's there when everyone else has left. It makes you feel special. It makes you feel purposeful. It makes you feel superior to everyone else who couldn't handle this person. But here's the hard question. If they actually got their act together, if they healed, grew, and no longer needed you to be their emotional support system, would you still feel valuable in that relationship? Psychologist Dr. Harriet Breaker explains, needing to be needed is one of the most insidious forms of approval-seeking behavior. It masquerades as selflessness, but it's actually about you, your identity, your purpose, your validation. You're not helping them by staying. You're enabling them. Every day you cushion the consequences of their behavior. You're removing their motivation to change. Why should they treat you better when you've shown them that you'll stay regardless? And meanwhile, you've become addicted to being needed, even when what they need from you is slowly killing you. True love wants the other person to grow, even if that growth means they don't need you anymore. What you're practicing isn't love, it's codependency. The scarcity mindset. You don't believe you'll find better. Here's the belief operating beneath the surface. This is the best I can do. Maybe you don't say it out loud. Maybe you don't consciously think it. But somewhere in your subconscious, you've decided that you're too old to start over. You're too damaged to attract someone healthy. You've got too much baggage. You're not attractive enough, successful enough, interesting enough. Everyone has flaws, and at least these flaws are familiar. You're operating from scarcity, not abundance. And scarcity makes you hold on to things that are harming you because you're terrified that letting go means ending up with nothing. But let me tell you what actually happens when you're in a relationship that drains you. You become less attractive to quality people. Not physically, though exhaustion and stress do take their toll, but energetically. Healthy, high-value people are attracted to others who value themselves. When you radiate desperation, when you're obviously settling, when you've dimmed your light to make someone else comfortable, you repel exactly the kind of person who would actually value you. Author Mandy Hale says it perfectly, growth is painful. Change is painful. But nothing is as painful as staying stuck somewhere you don't belong. You're so afraid of being alone that you're choosing to be lonely in company. You're so afraid of not finding anyone else that you're settling for someone who doesn't even fully choose you. The scarcity mindset is a self-fulfilling prophecy. You don't believe you deserve better, so you accept less, which makes you feel worse, which makes you believe even more strongly that you don't deserve better. The cycle only breaks when you choose abundance, when you trust that being alone and at peace is infinitely better than being partnered and in pain. The sunk cost of identity. You've made this struggle part of your story. You know what's scarier than staying in a bad relationship? Having to rewrite your entire narrative. You've told people about this relationship. You've defended it. You've made it part of your identity. You've turned it into a story about your capacity to love, your resilience, your unwillingness to give up on people. Walking away doesn't just mean losing them. It means losing the story you've told yourself about who you are. If you leave, what happens to all those times you told friends, it's complicated, but we're working on it? What happens to the narrative you constructed about true love overcoming obstacles? What happens to your self-image as someone who doesn't quit? You have to admit that you were wrong, that you wasted time, that your judgment was off, that the relationship you defended so fiercely was actually hurting you all along. That's humiliating. That's ego-destroying. So instead, you stay, not because the relationship serves you, but because leaving would require admitting the truth. But here's what you need to understand. The embarrassment of leaving lasts weeks, maybe months. The regret of staying lasts years, maybe decades. As Michelle Obama said, Failure is an important part of your growth and developing resilience. Don't be afraid to fail. Leaving isn't failing. Staying in something that diminishes you is the real failure. The optimization trap. You believe love means fixing. You're a problem solver. When you see something broken, you fix it. When you see potential, you cultivate it. When you see someone struggling, you help. Except this person isn't a project, and you're not a contractor. You've approached this relationship like a renovation. You've identified all the issues. You've created a plan. You've invested time, energy, money, and emotion into making it better. And you keep thinking, just a little more work, just a little more time, just a few more improvements, and this will be everything I hoped for. But here's what you're missing. They didn't hire you as their contractor. You volunteered. And they're perfectly happy living in the before version while you're exhausting yourself trying to create an after that they never asked for. You can't fix people who don't think they're broken. You can't improve people who don't want to change. You can't love someone into being who you need them to be. The only thing you can do is accept them exactly as they are right now, with no expectation of change, and then ask yourself honestly, is this enough? If the answer is no, then all you're optimizing, all you're hoping, all you're trying is just procrastination, delaying the inevitable moment when you finally accept that some things can't be fixed, they can only be left. The people-pleasing reflex. Your worth is tied to being wanted. Let's talk about the deepest wound. You don't feel valuable unless someone wants you. Not just wants you, needs you, chooses you, validates you. Your sense of worth is so externalized that the thought of someone rejecting you, leaving you, or not valuing you feels like proof that you're fundamentally unlovable. So you contort yourself. You minimize your needs. You accept terrible treatment. You tolerate the intolerable because rejection feels like death. This probably started long before this relationship. Maybe in childhood, when love was conditional. Maybe in past relationships, when abandonment taught you that you have to earn the right to be valued. But the result is the same. You're terrified of being alone because you've never learned to be good company for yourself. Dr. Kristen Neff, who researches self-compassion, found that people with low self-compassion stay in unfulfilling relationships longer because they don't believe they deserve better. The antidote isn't finding someone who finally values you the way you deserve. The antidote is valuing yourself so completely that other people's valuation becomes supplementary, not essential. When your worth comes from within, you can walk away from anyone who doesn't add to it. But when your worth depends on external validation, you become a hostage to anyone willing to give you breadcrumbs. The comfort of the familiar. Your nervous system prefers known pain. Here's something your body doesn't tell you. Your nervous system prefers familiar suffering to unfamiliar peace. If you grew up in chaos, chaos feels like home. If you learned early that love comes with conditions, conditional love feels normal. If your early relationships taught you that you have to work hard to earn affection, relationships where you're easily valued feel wrong. Too easy, too good to be true. So unconsciously, you're drawn to relationships that replicate your original wounds. Not because you're broken, but because your nervous system is trying to master the trauma by recreating it. Psychologist Dr. Bessel van der Kolk, in his groundbreaking work on trauma, explains, the body keeps the score. Your rational mind knows you deserve better, but your body, your actual nervous system, keeps returning you to familiar patterns. This is why people who grow up with alcoholic parents often partner with addicts. Why people who experienced emotional neglect often choose emotionally unavailable partners. It's not a character flaw, it's your system trying to resolve old pain with new people. But here's the truth. You can't heal in the same environment that wounded you. And you can't resolve childhood trauma by accepting adult mistreatment. Walking away isn't just about leaving this person. It's about finally breaking the pattern that's been running your life. The perfectionism problem. You think leaving means you failed. You're a finisher. You complete what you start. You don't quit when things get hard. And you've applied that work ethic to a relationship, treating it like a project that just needs more effort. But relationships aren't jobs. They're not marathons where perseverance guarantees success. Sometimes leaving isn't quitting. It's finally accepting reality. Brené Brown teaches, perfectionism is not the same thing as striving to be your best. Perfectionism is the belief that if we live perfect, look perfect, and act perfect, we can minimize or avoid the pain of blame, judgment, and shame. You're trying to have the perfect relationship story. The one where your love conquered all obstacles. Where you were patient enough, understanding enough, loving enough to transform someone. But you can't perfect your way out of a fundamentally flawed dynamic. Leaving doesn't mean you failed. It means you finally succeeded at the most important thing. Choosing yourself. The truth about good people. Good people accept bad treatment not because they're weak, but because their goodness has been exploited. Your empathy was used to excuse their behavior. Your loyalty was used to trap you. Your desire to help was used to keep you servicing their needs. Your fear of being alone was used to keep you accepting less. Your entire beautiful heart was turned into a weapon against you. But here's what you need to understand. Being good doesn't mean being available for mistreatment. Having a big heart doesn't mean letting people live rent-free in it while they trash the place. The same qualities that got you into this situation are the qualities that will get you out, once you redirect them toward yourself. In Chapter 5, we're going to draw a clear line between loyalty and self-betrayal. We're going to help you understand when staying is strength and when it's just fear with better PR. But right now, I need you to do something radical. Forgive yourself. Forgive yourself for staying too long. Forgive yourself for seeing the best in someone who showed you their worst. Forgive yourself for being good in a world that sometimes punishes goodness. You're not broken. You're not weak. You're not stupid. You're a good person who's been in a bad situation. And that's about to change. Chapter 5. The difference between loyalty and self-betrayal. You call it loyalty. You call it commitment. You call it being there for someone you love. But let me ask you something. When was the last time they were there for you? When was the last time your needs mattered as much as theirs? When did your pain become as important as their comfort? Here's what you're calling loyalty. It's actually self-abandonment with a prettier name. It's betraying yourself daily while calling it love. And the most devastating part? You've been so loyal to someone who wouldn't cross the street for you that you've forgotten how to be loyal to the one person who's been with you since day one. Yourself. There's an old story about a dog who sits on a nail. Someone asks the dog's owner, why doesn't he move? The owner replies, because it doesn't hurt quite enough yet. You're that dog. And you've convinced yourself that sitting on the nail is loyalty. But loyalty to someone who consistently hurts you isn't virtue, it's voluntary suffering. And it's time you learned the difference between standing by someone through hard times and standing still while they run you over. This chapter is about drawing the line. About understanding when commitment becomes complicity in your own diminishment. About recognizing that the most important loyalty you owe is to yourself. What real loyalty actually looks like. Let's start by defining what we're even talking about, because you've been operating with a corrupted definition of loyalty for so long that you've forgotten what the real thing looks like. Real loyalty is mutual. It flows both ways. It's not one person perpetually sacrificing while the other perpetually benefits. Both people show up. Both people compromise. Both people consider the other's well-being alongside their own. Real loyalty is reciprocal. When you're there for someone's 3 a.m. crisis, they're there for yours. When you adjust your life to accommodate their needs, they do the same. The scales might not balance every single day, but over time, there's equilibrium. Real loyalty is sustainable. It doesn't drain you. It doesn't require you to set yourself on fire to keep someone else warm. You can maintain it without losing yourself, your peace, or your self-respect. Real loyalty has boundaries. Yes, you stand by someone through difficulties, but not through repeated, unaddressed patterns of disrespect. Not through continuous mistreatment. Not through someone's refusal to grow or change behaviors that harm you. Author Steve Maraboli wrote, "Loyalty is not about being there when it's convenient, it's about being there when it's not. But it's also about not staying when it's destroying you." That second part? That's the part you've been ignoring. The anatomy of self-betrayal. Self-betrayal happens when you know something is wrong, when every fiber of your being is screaming that this isn't okay, and you override your own knowing to stay in someone's good graces. It happens when you silence your needs because expressing them might cause conflict. You accept treatment you'd never tolerate for a friend. You make excuses for behavior you know is unacceptable. You stay in situations that violate your values. You choose someone else's comfort over your own peace. Every time you betray yourself, you send your subconscious a message: we can't be trusted. Our needs don't matter. Our judgment is faulty. We're not worth protecting. Do that enough times and you create a pattern. You become someone who abandons themselves at the first sign of resistance from others. Your boundaries become suggestions. Your standards become negotiable. Your self-worth becomes dependent on external validation. Psychologist Dr. Tara Brach explains, "Perhaps the biggest tragedy of our lives is that freedom is possible, yet we can pass our years trapped in the same old patterns." You're trapped in the pattern of believing that loyalty to others requires disloyalty to yourself. It doesn't. It never did. The 5 signs you've crossed from loyalty to self-betrayal. How do you know when you've crossed the line? Here are 5 clear indicators. Sign number 1. You're constantly justifying their behavior to yourself. Loyalty doesn't require a constant internal PR campaign. If you're spending more time convincing yourself that their behavior is acceptable than you are actually enjoying the relationship, you're not being loyal, you're being delusional. Real loyalty says, they're going through a hard time, and I'm here to support them while they work through it. Self-betrayal says, they're going through a hard time, which is why it's okay that they treat me poorly, ignore my needs, and make no effort to change. And they've been going through this hard time for 3 years straight, but I'm sure it'll get better soon. One is support. The other is enabling dressed as devotion. Sign number 2. Your physical or mental health is deteriorating. Your body doesn't lie. When you're betraying yourself to stay loyal to someone else, your body keeps the score. Are you experiencing chronic anxiety or depression that wasn't there before? Sleep disturbances, nightmares, or insomnia, digestive issues, headaches, or other stress-related symptoms? A feeling of being constantly on edge? Emotional numbness or disconnection from yourself? These aren't just symptoms of a difficult relationship. These are your body's way of screaming that something is fundamentally wrong. Loyalty to another person should never require sacrificing your health. If being loyal is making you sick, you're not being loyal to them, you're being hostile to yourself. Sign number 3. You've lost touch with your own desires and needs. When was the last time you asked yourself what you actually want? Not what would make them happy. Not what would keep the peace. Not what would prove you're committed. What do you, in the deepest part of yourself, actually want? If you can't answer that question, if you've become so consumed with managing their needs that you've lost track of your own, you've crossed into self-betrayal. Author Bell Hooks wrote, "Knowing how to be solitary is central to the art of loving. When we can be alone, we can be with others without using them as a means of escape. But you've forgotten how to be with yourself. You've outsourced your entire sense of purpose to this relationship. You don't even know who you are outside of who you are to them. That's not loyalty. That's identity dissolution." Sign number 4. You're making sacrifices they'd never make for you. Think about the sacrifices you've made. Career opportunities declined. Friendships abandoned. Family relationships strained. Personal goals postponed. values compromised, boundaries erased. Now ask yourself, would they make those same sacrifices for you? Not would they if you asked, because you probably don't ask, knowing the answer would hurt. But based on their actual behavior, their actual priorities, their actual pattern of choices, would they sacrifice for you the way you sacrifice for them? If the answer is no, or even I don't think so, then you're not in a reciprocal relationship. You're in a one-person loyalty program, and you're the only member. Real loyalty is mutual sacrifice for a shared vision. What you're doing is unilateral martyrdom for someone who hasn't even noticed you're on the cross. Sign number 5. You can't imagine leaving without feeling crushing guilt. This is the clearest sign of all. When the thought of prioritizing yourself, of enforcing a boundary, of walking away fills you with guilt so intense it's paralyzing. You've been conditioned to believe that self-loyalty is selfishness. Healthy relationships allow for exits. Not because people are looking for the door, but because people who choose to stay freely are fundamentally different from people who stay because they feel they have no choice. If leaving feels like you'd be abandoning them, betraying them, or proving that you're a bad person, you've internalized the idea that you exist to serve their needs at the expense of your own. That's not love. That's not loyalty. That's learned helplessness with a relationship status. The loyalty versus self-betrayal decision tree. Here's a simple framework to help you distinguish between the two. Ask yourself 3 questions. Question 1. Is this person actively working on the issues that harm the relationship? If yes, and you're supporting them through that genuine growth process, that's loyalty. If no, and you're just accepting the same patterns on repeat while hoping for magical change, that's self-betrayal. Question 2. Am I staying because I want to, or because I'm afraid of what happens if I don't? If you're staying because the relationship adds genuine value to your life, because you've weighed the pros and cons and the pros actually win, that's loyalty. If you're staying because you're afraid of being alone, afraid of their reaction, afraid of judgment, afraid you won't find better, that's self-betrayal. Question 3. If my child or best friend described this exact relationship to me, would I encourage them to stay? If you'd tell them, yes, this is worth fighting for. This person values you and this is just a rough patch, that's loyalty. If you'd tell them, please, you deserve so much better than this. Why are you accepting this treatment? But you're staying anyway, that's self-betrayal. The answers to these questions don't lie. Your justifications lie. Your fear lies. Your hope lies. But these answers, they cut through the noise to the truth. The cultural programming that glorifies self-betrayal. Part of why you're struggling to see the difference is because culture has sold you a toxic narrative about what love and loyalty look like. We're fed endless stories about people who never gave up on someone and were eventually rewarded with that person's transformation. We're shown movies where persistent devotion finally breaks through someone's walls. We're taught that real love means enduring anything, forgiving everything, and never admitting defeat. Think about every romantic comedy you've ever seen. The message is clear: if you just love them hard enough, long enough, loyally enough, they'll change. But that's fiction. It makes for compelling storytelling, but terrible life advice. Author Mark Manson cuts through this perfectly. We suffer for the simple reason that suffering is biologically useful. It is nature's preferred agent for inspiring change. Your suffering isn't nobility. It's a signal. It's information that something needs to change. And the change isn't love them harder. The change is stop betraying yourself. The difference between supporting someone's growth and tolerating stagnation. Here's where people get confused. They think loyalty means staying regardless of behavior. But there's a massive difference between standing by someone who's struggling and standing still while someone treats you poorly. Supporting someone's growth looks like this. They acknowledge the problem. They take responsibility for their behavior. They actively work on change, therapy, books, genuine effort. They appreciate your patience. You see measurable progress over time. They're invested in the relationship's success. Your needs are still considered and respected. Tolerating stagnation looks like this. They deny there's a problem or minimize your concerns. They blame circumstances, other people, or you for their behavior. They promise change but take no concrete action. They take your presence for granted. Nothing actually improves, you just lower your standards. The relationship is entirely on their terms. Your needs are constantly sacrificed to accommodate theirs. One is a partnership navigating challenges together. The other is you accepting a permanent position as their emotional support human while they make zero effort to reciprocate. Poet Nayira Waheed wrote, "And I said to my body softly, I want to be your friend. It took a long breath and replied, I have been waiting my whole life for this." Your body, your intuition, your gut, your inner knowing, has been waiting for you to stop betraying it by staying where you're not valued. It's been waiting for your loyalty to finally include yourself. What loyalty to yourself actually requires. Self-loyalty isn't selfish. It's not cold. It's not giving up on people at the first sign of trouble. Self-loyalty is recognizing that you matter just as much as the people you love. It means honoring your needs with the same seriousness you honor theirs, maintaining boundaries even when it disappoints others, walking away from situations that require you to diminish yourself, refusing to accept treatment you wouldn't want for people you love, trusting your own experience even when others dismiss it. Self-loyalty means understanding that you are not responsible for saving people from themselves. You can offer support, encouragement, resources, but you cannot want someone's growth more than they want it themselves. Self-loyalty means accepting that your time, energy, and emotional capacity are finite resources, and investing them in people who don't value them is poor stewardship of your own life. Self-loyalty means knowing that the people who truly love you won't require you to betray yourself to prove your love for them. The hardest truth about loyalty. Sometimes the most loyal thing you can do, for both of you, is leave. Staying in a relationship where you're undervalued enables the other person to continue patterns that ultimately harm them too. You're preventing them from experiencing the natural consequences of their behavior. You're allowing them to believe that treating people poorly has no real cost. Your departure might be the wake-up call they need. Or it might not. Either way, that's not your responsibility. Your responsibility is to yourself, to your well-being, to your future, to the life you could be living if you weren't spending all your energy on someone who won't meet you halfway. Author Glennon Doyle said, "You are not supposed to be happy all the time. Life hurts and it's hard. Not because you're doing it wrong, but because it hurts for everybody. Don't avoid the pain. You need it. It's meant for you. Be still with it. Let it come. Let it go. Let it leave you with the fuel you'll burn to get your work done on this earth. The pain of leaving is meant for you. It's the fuel for your transformation. It's the portal to the life where you finally matter to yourself as much as everyone else has mattered to you." Drawing your line. Right now, you need to decide, where's your line? Not the line you wish you had. Not the line you think you should have. The line you're actually willing to enforce. What behavior are you no longer willing to tolerate? What needs are non-negotiable? What treatment is beneath your standards? What will it take for you to finally choose yourself? Write it down. Make it concrete. Because vague standards are unenforceable standards. "I deserve to be treated better" is too vague. "I will not stay in a relationship where my partner regularly cancels plans without consideration, dismisses my feelings, or refuses to discuss issues that matter to me." That's a line you can actually hold. In Chapter 6, we're going to prepare you mentally for what walking away actually requires. We're going to build your emotional infrastructure so that when the moment comes, you're ready. But before we go there, you need to complete this one task. Stop calling self-betrayal loyalty. Call it what it is. Fear, conditioning, trauma response, hope addiction, whatever applies to you. But don't sanctify it with the word loyalty. Real loyalty doesn't cost you your peace, your health, or your self-respect. And anyone who requires you to pay that price to prove your devotion doesn't understand love at all. They understand control. They understand convenience. They understand getting their needs met at your expense. But they don't understand loyalty, because loyalty, real loyalty, protects both people. It's time to protect yourself. Chapter 6. Preparing mentally to walk away. You know you need to leave. You've known for months, maybe years. You've had the conversation in your head 1,000 times. You've rehearsed what you'll say, imagined their reaction, planned your exit. But you're still here. Because knowing you need to leave and being mentally prepared to actually do it are two completely different things. One is intellectual understanding. The other is emotional readiness. And right now, your mind is willing but your heart is terrified. This chapter is about closing that gap, about building the mental fortress you'll need when everything in you wants to run back to what's familiar, even if what's familiar is killing you slowly. There's a concept in mountain climbing called the summit fever. It's when climbers get so fixated on reaching the peak that they ignore the warning signs telling them to turn back. They push past their oxygen limits, past weather warnings, past their body's signals, and many of them die within sight of their goal. The experienced climbers know something the summit-fevered ones don't. The summit is only halfway. You still have to make it back down. Walking away from someone who doesn't value you is the same. Making the decision to leave is only half the battle. You still have to survive the descent, the guilt, the doubt, the loneliness, the moments when going back feels easier than going forward. This chapter is about preparing for that descent, about building the mental resilience you'll need when your resolve starts to waver, about fortifying yourself before the storm, not during it. Mental preparation is not optional. Let me be brutally honest. If you try to leave without mentally preparing first, you'll probably go back. Not because you're weak, not because you don't deserve better, but because you're about to face psychological warfare, both from them and from your own mind, and you can't win a war you haven't trained for. You're going to face intense guilt that tells you you're abandoning someone who needs you, crippling doubt that whispers you're making a terrible mistake, crushing loneliness that makes their occasional company seem better than none. Manipulation that targets every insecurity you have. Your own nervous system fighting you every step of the way. Without preparation, these forces will overwhelm you. You'll convince yourself to try one more time, to give them another chance, to believe that this time will be different. And it won't be. It never is. Naval Ravikant, entrepreneur and philosopher, says, all of humanity's problems stem from man's inability to sit quietly in a room alone. Your inability to leave stems from the same source. You haven't prepared yourself to be comfortable with the discomfort that leaving requires. So let's prepare. Step 1. Get brutally honest about what you're actually leaving. Your brain is going to play tricks on you. The moment you seriously consider leaving, your mind will suddenly remember only the good times, the laughter, the connection, the moments when they were everything you needed them to be. This is called rosy retrospection, and it's a documented psychological phenomenon where we remember the past more fondly than we actually experienced it. Your brain is trying to protect you from the pain of change by romanticizing what you're leaving behind. You need to counter this with brutal honesty. Create a reality document. Write down, in explicit detail, the actual patterns of this relationship, the specific ways they've hurt you, the times you felt dismissed, devalued, or disrespected, the promises they broke, the needs they ignored, the tears you cried, the person you've become while trying to love someone who doesn't love you back the same way. Don't sugarcoat it. Don't justify it. Don't explain it away. Just document the reality. Then, and this is crucial, read this document every time you feel yourself weakening. Every time the loneliness feels unbearable. Every time you think, Maybe it wasn't that bad. It was that bad. The document doesn't lie. Your memories do. Author and Lamott wrote, "You own everything that happened to you. Tell your stories." If people wanted you to write warmly about them, they should have behaved better. Your reality document is your story. Honor it by not rewriting it to make staying easier. Step 2. Grieve the relationship while you're still in it. Here's what most people don't understand. You don't have to wait until you leave to start grieving. In fact, you shouldn't. If you wait until after you leave to process the loss, the grief will be so overwhelming it'll pull you back. Start grieving now. Grieve the relationship you thought you had. Grieve the person you hoped they'd become. Grieve the future you'd imagined together. Grieve the time you invested. Grieve the version of yourself you became while trying to make this work. This is called anticipatory grief, and it's a legitimate psychological process. Therapists use it to help people prepare for inevitable losses. You're using it to prepare for a necessary one. Cry. Journal. Talk to trusted friends. Let yourself feel the full weight of what you're losing, because you are losing something, even if what you're losing was hurting you. Psychologist Dr. Elizabeth Kubler-Ross, who pioneered grief research, taught us that grief is not linear. You'll feel anger, denial, bargaining, depression, and acceptance, sometimes all in the same day. Let yourself feel it all now, while you still have the structure of the relationship to contain it. When you finally leave, you won't be starting the grief process. You'll be finishing it, and that makes all the difference. Step 3. Build your exit story and believe it. You need a narrative, not for them, but for yourself. A story you can tell yourself when doubt creeps in. A mission statement for your departure. This isn't about justifying yourself to others. This is about anchoring yourself to your truth when everything feels uncertain. Your exit story should include why you're leaving, not because they're evil, but because you're incompatible with being undervalued. What you're moving toward, not just away from pain, but toward peace, self-respect, and a life that honors you. What you've learned. How this relationship taught you what you will and won't accept going forward. Who you're becoming. The version of yourself who chooses dignity over familiarity. Here's an example. I'm leaving because I've learned that I cannot be in a relationship where my needs are consistently treated as optional. I'm not leaving because I stopped caring. I'm leaving because I started caring about myself. I'm moving toward a life where I'm valued, where my peace matters, where I don't have to shrink myself to fit into someone else's limited capacity. This relationship taught me that love without respect isn't love at all. I'm becoming someone who knows her worth and doesn't negotiate it away for companionship. Write your exit story. Memorize it. Repeat it to yourself daily. Because when your resolve weakens, and it will, this story is your anchor. Researcher and author Brené Brown teaches, when we deny our stories, they define us. When we own our stories, we get to write the ending. You're writing a new ending. Make it a good one. Step 4. Visualize the aftermath, the real one. Your brain is terrified of leaving because it can't see past the immediate pain. It imagines a wasteland of loneliness and regret. You need to give it a different image. Spend time every day visualizing what your life actually looks like after you leave, and be realistic about both the challenges and the freedom. Visualize the hard parts, the empty apartment, the lonely Friday nights, the moments you want to text them and have to resist, the grief that hits you in waves, the social awkwardness of explaining the breakup. Don't shy away from these images. Prepare for them. When you've already imagined them, they're less terrifying when they actually happen. Then visualize the freedom. Waking up without anxiety. Making decisions based only on what you want. Not checking your phone every 5 minutes. Having energy for friendships, hobbies, yourself. Feeling peace instead of constant tension. Rediscovering who you are outside of this relationship. Eventually, being available for someone who actually values you. Olympic athletes use visualization because the brain doesn't distinguish between vividly imagined experiences and real ones. The neural pathways are the same. When you repeatedly visualize yourself thriving after leaving, you're literally training your brain to believe it's possible. Step 5. Assemble your support infrastructure before you need it. You cannot do this alone. You absolutely cannot. The people who successfully leave undervaluing relationships have something in common. They built a support system before they left, not after. Identify your people right now. The truth teller. The friend who will remind you why you left when you're romanticizing the past. The cheerleader. The person who celebrates your strength and reminds you of your worth. The distractor. The friend who will show up with plans to keep you from spiraling. The therapist. The professional who can help you process without judgment. Tell these people what you're planning. Not everyone, you don't need a committee, but your core people need to know. Because when you're in the valley of doubt at 2 a.m., you need someone who can remind you why you're doing this. Make specific plans. If I'm tempted to reach out to them, I'll call you first. If I start justifying going back, I need you to read my reality document to me. If I'm struggling with loneliness, can we have a standing Tuesday night plan? Specificity creates accountability. Vague intentions fail. Concrete plans succeed. Author Johann Hari, who researched connection and addiction, found, the opposite of addiction is not sobriety. The opposite of addiction is connection. You're potentially addicted to this person, to this dynamic, to the hope that it'll get better. The antidote is connection, with people who actually value you. Step 6. Create physical and financial preparation. Mental preparation is crucial, but practical preparation makes it possible. If you live together, you need a place to go, friend's couch, family, your own place. Money saved for deposits, moving costs, or temporary expenses. Important documents secured, passport, birth certificate, financial records, valuables and sentimental items safely stored. An exit bag packed if the relationship has any potential for escalation. If you don't live together, you still need a plan for returning belongings, or accepting you may lose them. Blocked routes of contact, phone, social media, mutual friends informed. New routines that don't include them. Places you can go that aren't contaminated with shared memories. Nothing undermines your resolve faster than logistical chaos. When you don't have a place to sleep or money for food, going back starts to seem like the only practical option. Don't let practical unpreparedness sabotage your emotional readiness. Step 7. Desensitize yourself to their reactions. This is the manipulation you're most afraid of. When you tell them you're leaving, they might cry and beg, promise to change, remind you of all the good times, blame you for giving up, threaten to hurt themselves, turn on a dime and become cruel. You need to prepare for all of it. Write out the worst-case scenario of their reaction, every manipulation tactic they might use. Then write your response to each one. Practice saying it out loud. They're begging. I've made my decision. I need you to respect it. Their promises. You've promised before. I need actions over time, and I'm no longer available to wait. Their blame. I'm not abandoning you. I'm choosing myself. Those aren't the same thing. Their threats. I care about you, but I'm not responsible for your choices. If you're in crisis, please call crisis line/therapist/family member. Therapist and author Dr. Harriet Lerner advises, difficult endings are sometimes necessary for new beginnings. You cannot control their reaction. You can only control your response. Practice until their potential reactions lose their power over you. Desensitization works. What you've rehearsed, you can handle. Step 8. Identify and dismantle your cognitive distortions. Your brain is going to lie to you. repeatedly. These lies are called cognitive distortions, and they're the weapons your fear uses to keep you trapped. Common distortions you'll face. Catastrophizing. If I leave, I'll be alone forever. Reality. Many people find healthier relationships after leaving unhealthy ones. Your past doesn't determine your future. All or nothing thinking. If this relationship fails, it means I'm a failure. Reality. A relationship ending doesn't define your worth. Sometimes the success is in having the courage to leave. Mind reading. Everyone will think I'm a quitter. Reality. You don't know what others think. And people who truly care about you want you to be happy, not to suffer for appearances. Emotional reasoning. I feel guilty, so leaving must be wrong. Reality. Guilt is a conditioned response, not a moral compass. You can feel guilty and still be doing the right thing. Should statements. I should be able to make this work. Reality. Should, according to whom? Based on what standard? You've tried. It didn't work. That's not failure, that's data. Write these down. When you catch yourself thinking them, call them what they are, distortions, not truths. Cognitive behavioral therapy research shows that naming cognitive distortions reduces their power by 40 to 60%. Your brain can't manipulate you as easily when you see the manipulation happening in real time. Step 9. Practice tolerating discomfort. Here's an uncomfortable truth. You're going to have to get comfortable being uncomfortable. Leaving will hurt. Being alone will feel strange. The uncertainty will be anxiety-inducing, and you're going to have to sit with all of it without running back to what's familiar. Start practicing now. Sit with small discomforts without immediately resolving them. Spend time alone without filling the silence. Feel your feelings without numbing them. Make small decisions that prioritize your needs over others' comfort. This is building your distress tolerance, your capacity to survive discomfort without it controlling you. Mindfulness teacher Pema Chodron teaches, the most fundamental aggression to ourselves, the most fundamental harm we can do to ourselves, is to remain ignorant by not having the courage and the respect to look at ourselves honestly and gently. Looking honestly at your situation is uncomfortable. Leaving is uncomfortable. Being alone is uncomfortable. But you're building your capacity to survive discomfort, and that capacity is what will carry you through. Step 10. Create your non-negotiables. Finally, establish your non-negotiables, the lines you will not cross, no matter what. Examples. I will not respond to contact for at least 30 days. I will not meet up just to talk. I will not get back together unless there's evidence of sustained change over at least 6 months, including therapy. I will not betray myself again by accepting less than I deserve. Write these down. Share them with your support system. These are your guardrails when the emotional highway gets treacherous. When you're weak, when you're lonely, when they're love-bombing you with everything you've wanted to hear. These non-negotiables are what keep you on course. The truth about mental preparation. Mental preparation doesn't make leaving easy. It makes it possible. You're still going to doubt yourself. You're still going to have moments of crushing loneliness. You're still going to wonder if you made a mistake. But preparation means that those moments won't destroy you. They won't send you running back. They'll hurt, and you'll survive them, and eventually, they'll pass. In Chapter 7, we're moving from preparation to execution. We're talking about the actual exit, how to leave with dignity, what to say, how to handle their reaction, and how to stay gone. But everything in that chapter only works if you've done the work in this one. You don't build the shelter during the hurricane. You build it before the storm arrives. So build it now. Fortify your mind. Prepare your heart. Assemble your courage piece by piece. Because when the moment comes, and it's coming, you need to be ready. Not perfect. Not fearless. Just ready enough. And if you've done the work in this chapter, you will be. Chapter 7. The art of the exit. How to leave with dignity. You've done the mental preparation. You know why you're leaving. You've built your support system. You're ready. But now you're facing the moment itself, the actual conversation, the actual goodbye, the actual end. And suddenly, all that preparation feels inadequate because this is real now. There's no more rehearsing, no more planning. Just you, them, and the words that will change everything. Here's what you need to know. How you leave matters almost as much as that you leave. Because you're not just ending a relationship, you're defining who you are in your hardest moment. This chapter is about leaving with your integrity intact, your dignity preserved, and your resolve unshaken. It's about making your exit so clean that there's nothing to go back to. There's a concept in surgery called clean margins. When removing a tumor, surgeons need to cut with precision, getting all of the diseased tissue while preserving as much healthy tissue as possible. A clean margin means the cancer is completely removed and the healing can begin. Your exit needs clean margins too. Not because this person is a disease, but because a messy exit leaves threads you can get tangled in later. It leaves doors open. It creates ambiguity. It gives false hope to both of you. This chapter is about surgical precision, about removing yourself from a situation that's harming you in a way that allows both of you to heal. The foundation. Clarity over closure. First, let's dismantle a dangerous myth. The myth of closure. You've probably heard that you need closure, that you need to have a final conversation where everything is said, every question answered, every emotion processed, where they finally understand why you're leaving and acknowledge their part in it. That's a beautiful fantasy. It's also bullshit. Closure is something you create for yourself. It's not something they give you. Waiting for them to validate your decision, to admit they were wrong, to send you off with their blessing is waiting for something that may never come. Author Gail Caldwell wrote, "The only way out is through." But she didn't say the only way out is through a perfect conversation where everyone gets what they need. Sometimes the only way out is through a door you open yourself, regardless of whether they're ready to let you go. What you need isn't closure. What you need is clarity. Clarity about why you're leaving. Clarity about your decision being final. Clarity about your boundaries going forward. Clarity that you owe yourself more than an explanation to someone who never valued you anyway. Deciding on the method. In person, phone, or text. Let's address the elephant in the room. Do you owe them an in-person breakup? The traditional answer is yes. Relationship experts say that anything less is cowardly, disrespectful, immature. I'm going to give you a different answer. It depends. You owe an in-person conversation to someone who has treated you with consistent respect, honored your boundaries, handled conflict maturely, never threatened, manipulated, or made you feel unsafe, earned the right to that level of consideration. But if this person has manipulated you in the past, bulldozed your boundaries, made you feel unsafe, physically or emotionally, demonstrated they don't respect your decisions, a pattern of turning your conversations into negotiations you didn't agree to have, then you protect yourself first. Your safety, emotional and physical, matters more than etiquette. In person is appropriate when you feel safe. You've lived together and need to discuss logistics. You believe you can hold your boundary in their presence. You want to honor what the relationship once meant. Phone or video call is appropriate when distance makes in-person difficult. You need the ability to end the conversation if it becomes abusive. You want to see/hear their reaction but need an escape route. Text or email is appropriate when you feel unsafe. Past attempts at conversation have been derailed or manipulative. You need a written record. You know that any real-time conversation will result in you backing down. Let me be absolutely clear. Choosing text or email doesn't make you a coward. It makes you strategic. It makes you someone who knows their limitations and protects themselves accordingly. As author Cheryl Richardson said, just because someone gets upset when you set a boundary doesn't mean you shouldn't set it. And just because someone might be hurt by the method you choose doesn't mean you should choose a method that puts you at risk of not following through. Your successful exit is more important than their preferred exit experience. What to say? The script for departure. You need a script. Not because you're being fake, but because under pressure, we forget what we meant to say. We get derailed. We get manipulated. We end up having a completely different conversation than we intended. Your script needs 3 elements. 1. The decision, stated as fact, not negotiation. 2. The reason, brief, honest, non-negotiable. 3. The boundary, what happens next. Here's a template. I've made the decision to end our relationship. This isn't a conversation about whether to break up. That decision is made. I'm telling you out of respect for the time we've shared. I'm leaving because I've realized that we're fundamentally incompatible in ways that can't be fixed. I need specific needs, respect, reciprocity, emotional availability, honesty, whatever applies. And this relationship hasn't provided that despite multiple conversations about it. Going forward, I need no contact for 30 days / to coordinate only about logistics / complete separation. I'm not open to trying again or to staying friends right now. I need space to move forward, and I need you to respect that. Notice what this script doesn't include. Apologies for your decision. Openings for negotiation. I think maybe we should. Blame or character attacks. Justifications that invite argument. You're not being mean. You're being clear. And clarity, while sometimes painful, is the kindest thing you can offer in this moment. What not to say. Avoiding common pitfalls. Just as important as what to say is what not to say. These phrases will sabotage your exit. I'm sorry, but you're not sorry for choosing yourself. Remove the apology. I still love you, but this gives false hope. If you're leaving, the but is all that matters. Maybe someday. No maybes. Maybes are breadcrumbs that keep people waiting. You never. Or you always. Absolutes invite defensiveness. Stick to I need statements. It's not you, it's me. Unless it genuinely is only you. This is a cliché that nobody believes and everybody resents. I need a break. A break isn't a breakup. Don't soften your message into ambiguity. Any explanation that invites them to fix it. You don't spend enough time with me becomes a promise to spend more time. You don't prioritize me becomes a commitment to try harder. Don't give them a punch list of fixes. This isn't about fixable issues. This is about fundamental incompatibility. Remember what author Mark Manson teaches. Honesty is a natural franchise. If you're honest about what you're thinking and feeling, you will naturally be respected and trusted. Be honest. Be direct. Be final. Handling their reactions. The tactical guide. Now let's talk about what they're going to do when you deliver your message. You need to be prepared for every possibility. Reaction 1. Shock and denial. What? Where is this coming from? Everything was fine. Your response. I understand this feels sudden to you, but I've been thinking about this for weeks/months. I've tried to communicate my concerns, and nothing has changed. My decision is final. Do not get pulled into a debate about whether you communicated clearly enough. You did. They didn't listen. That's the pattern you're leaving. Reaction 2. Bargaining and promises. Please, just give me another chance. I'll change. I'll go to therapy. I'll do whatever you need. Just don't leave. Your response. I appreciate that you want to change now, but I've heard these promises before and nothing changed. I'm not available to wait for future change. I need to move forward. Do not Believe that this time is different. This time is different only because they're losing you. The moment the threat is gone, so is the motivation to change. Reaction 3. Anger and blame. This is your fault. You're being selfish. You're giving up. You never really loved me. Your response. I understand you're hurt and angry, but I'm not going to engage in blame. I've made my decision, and I need you to respect it. Do not defend yourself. Don't get pulled into arguing about who's at fault. That's exactly the conversation they want because it keeps you engaged. Reaction 4. Guilt and manipulation. I can't survive without you. I'll fall apart. You're all I have. How can you abandon me when I need you most? Your response. I care about your well-being, but I'm not responsible for it. I encourage you to reach out to therapist/family/friends for support. I cannot stay in a relationship out of guilt. Do not take responsibility for their emotional state. You are not their therapist, their parent, or their savior. If they threaten self-harm, take it seriously by contacting appropriate resources, but do not stay. Reaction 5. Love bombing. Suddenly they're the partner you've always wanted. Affectionate, attentive, saying everything you've longed to hear. Your response. I appreciate that you're showing me who you can be, but this is who you could have been all along. This doesn't change my decision. Do not be seduced by the person they become when they're losing you. This is performance, not transformation. Real change takes months of consistent effort, not hours of panic. The power of broken record technique. When they push back, and they will, use what psychologists call the broken record technique. You pick one phrase and repeat it, calmly, no matter what they say. I've made my decision and it's final. I've made my decision and it's final. I've made my decision and it's final. No elaboration. No new arguments. No justifications. Just the same statement, repeated as many times as necessary. It feels robotic. It feels cold. It works. Because what they're doing is searching for an opening, a weak point, an argument they can dismantle. When you don't give them new material, they have nothing to work with. Logistics. The practical exit. Let's talk about the nuts and bolts. If you live together, have your important items already moved or ready to move quickly. Have a place to stay lined up. Coordinate the logistics conversation separately from the breakup conversation. Consider having a friend present during move out for support and safety. Be prepared to lose some possessions. Your peace is worth more than any object. Communication boundaries. Decide. No contact. Limited contact for logistics only. Block on social media immediately. Not eventually, immediately. Change passwords for anything they have access to. Inform mutual friends of your boundaries so they don't become intermediaries. Save evidence of any harassment for potential protective orders. Financial separation. Close joint accounts. Remove them from credit cards. Change billing addresses. Cancel shared subscriptions. Protect your financial information. The 24-hour rule. Give yourself 24 hours after the conversation before any additional contact. Emotions will be high. Don't make decisions in that window. If they text, call, show up, you've already said what needed to be said. Silence is your boundary. The moment after. Surviving the first hours. Let's be real about what happens after you leave. The first hours are brutal. You're going to feel relief, terror, sadness, freedom, guilt, all of it at once in waves. This is normal, expected, not a sign you made the wrong decision. Your action plan for the first 24 hours. Hour 1 to 2. Emergency protocol. Go to your predetermined safe location. Text your support person, "It's done. I'm okay. Block their number, social media, email. Do not check to see if they've tried to contact you. Hour 3 to 6. Physical grounding. Eat something, even if you're not hungry. Drink water. Move your body, walk, yoga, anything. Your nervous system is in crisis. Treat it like one. Hour 7 to 12. Distraction and support. Don't be alone if possible. Watch something engaging, not romantic. Let yourself cry if you need to. Do not drink alcohol or make other decisions. Hour 13 to 24. Gentle reflection. Journal about why you left. Add to your reality document. Read your exit story. Remind yourself this pain is temporary. The discomfort you feel is growth, not mistake. When you want to go back, because you will. Let's address the hardest part. The moment when going back feels like oxygen and you're suffocating without it. This moment will come. Maybe in 3 days. Maybe in 3 weeks. But it will come. Your emergency protocol. Read your reality document. All of it out loud. Call your truth teller. The friend who will remind you why you left. Write a letter to them. Say everything you want to say, then delete it. Wait 48 hours. If you still want to reach out after 2 days, reassess. You won't. Ask yourself, am I missing them or missing not being alone? Most of the time, what you're missing isn't them. It's the idea of them, or the fear of being alone, or the comfort of the familiar. Author Pema Chodron teaches, nothing ever goes away until it teaches us what we need to know. The urge to return is teaching you something about yourself. Your attachment patterns, your fear of abandonment, your tolerance for discomfort. Learn from it. Don't let it control you. The dignity of a clean exit. Here's why how you leave matters. You're setting a precedent for yourself. The way you exit this relationship teaches you what you're capable of. If you leave with dignity, if you honor your decision, maintain your boundaries, and refuse to be pulled back, you prove to yourself that you can do hard things. That proof becomes the foundation for everything that comes next. You're modeling behavior for others. Someone in your life is watching. A friend, a family member, maybe even a stranger who hears your story. Your clean exit gives them permission to believe they can do it too. You're offering them a gift. Even if they can't see it now, you're showing them that actions have consequences. That they can't treat people poorly indefinitely without losing them. That's a lesson that might save their next relationship. And finally, you're honoring yourself. The dignity isn't for them, it's for you. It's saying, even in my hardest moment, even when I'm hurting, even when I'm scared, I can still be the person I want to be. The exit as beginning. This chapter is called The Art of the Exit. But the exit isn't an ending. It's a doorway. On the other side of that door is a version of your life you can barely imagine right now. A life where you're valued, where your needs matter, where you don't have to fight for basic respect. But you can't walk through that door while you're still standing in this room. In Chapter 8, we're going to address what happens after the exit. The guilt, the doubt, the backlash, and how to survive all of it without going back. But right now, you need to focus on this one moment, the exit itself. You've prepared for this. You know what to say. You know what they'll do. You know what you need. Now you just have to do it. Not perfectly. Not without fear. Just do it. Because on the other side of this conversation, this terrifying, necessary, dignity-preserving conversation, is your life. The one you've been putting on hold while you waited for them to value you. Stop waiting. Start living. Walk away with your head high, your boundaries firm, and your heart open to the future. Walk away knowing that choosing yourself isn't selfish. It's sacred. And walk away clean, with margins so clear that there's nothing left to debate, nothing left to negotiate, nothing left but forward. Chapter 8. Handling the guilt, doubt, and backlash. You did it. You walked away. You said the words, closed the door, and chose yourself. And now you're drowning in guilt so thick you can barely breathe. You're second-guessing every word you said. You're wondering if you overreacted, if you were too harsh, if you just threw away something that could have been saved. The doubt is relentless. The what-ifs are suffocating. And then there's the backlash. From them, from mutual friends, maybe even from family who think you should have tried harder. This is the part nobody warns you about. Leaving is only half the battle. Staying gone while your mind and everyone around you tries to pull you back? That's the war. And this chapter is your survival guide. There's a phenomenon in addiction recovery called extinction burst. When an addict stops getting their fix, their brain doesn't accept it quietly. Instead, it fights back harder than ever, creating intense cravings, catastrophic thinking, and overwhelming urges to return to the substance. You're experiencing the emotional equivalent right now. You've removed yourself from a relationship your nervous system had become dependent on. And now your brain is in full extinction burst mode, throwing everything it has at you to get you to go back. The guilt, the doubt, the loneliness, the fear that you've made an irreversible mistake. These aren't signs you were wrong. They're signs you're withdrawing from something you were addicted to. And just like in addiction recovery, the intensity of the withdrawal doesn't indicate the value of what you left. It indicates how dependent you'd become. Let's talk about how to survive it. The guilt. Understanding why you feel like a terrible person. Let's start with the big one. Guilt. Not the healthy guilt that comes from genuinely doing something wrong. This is what psychologists call inappropriate guilt. Guilt that's out of proportion to the situation. Guilt that's been programmed into you. Guilt that serves someone else's agenda more than your own growth. You feel guilty because 1. You've been conditioned to prioritize others' feelings over your own needs. From childhood, many of us, especially women, especially empaths, especially people-pleasers, are taught that making others uncomfortable is the cardinal sin. Being the cause of someone's pain, even justified pain, feels like moral failure. But here's the truth. You cannot grow, heal, or protect yourself without occasionally disappointing others. If you're waiting for permission to leave from the person you're leaving, you'll wait forever. 2. You're confusing cause with responsibility. Yes, you caused their pain by leaving, but you're not responsible for their pain. They're in pain because they lost access to you. Access they took for granted. Access they didn't value appropriately when they had it. That pain is a natural consequence of their behavior, not your cruelty. If someone burns their hand on a stove, the stove caused the pain. But the stove isn't responsible. The person who touched it is. 3. They want you to feel guilty. If they've reached out since you left, pay attention to the language. Are they telling you how devastated they are? Emphasizing how much they need you? Describing how they can't function without you? Making their suffering as vivid and detailed as possible? This isn't accidental. This is strategic guilt deployment. Whether conscious or not, they're using your empathy as a weapon to pull you back. The antidote to guilt. Keep a guilt reality check document. Every time you feel crushing guilt, write down, I feel guilty about leaving / hurting them / giving up / etc. The reality is, they consistently dismissed my needs / I communicated repeatedly and nothing changed / I deserve to be valued / etc. My guilt is actually my empathy being exploited / my conditioning to prioritize others / my fear of being the bad guy. The truth is, protecting myself isn't cruelty / I'm not responsible for their growth / I gave them countless chances. Read this every time the guilt threatens to pull you back. Author Cheryl Richardson wrote, "You can't please everyone and you shouldn't try. When you try to please everyone, you end up pleasing no one, least of all yourself." Your guilt is the price of admission to a life that honors you. Pay it and move forward. The doubt. When you can't stop questioning your decision. Now let's talk about the voice in your head that whispers, what if you're wrong? What if they really would have changed this time? What if you gave up too soon? What if you overreacted? What if you never find anyone else? What if this is the biggest mistake of your life? This doubt feels rational. It feels like wisdom, like careful consideration. It's actually trauma response disguised as critical thinking. The doubt comes from 1. Cognitive dissonance. Your brain is struggling to reconcile two competing beliefs. I'm a good person who doesn't give up on people. I just gave up on someone. To resolve this discomfort, your brain tries to rewrite the narrative. Maybe they weren't that bad. Maybe I was too demanding. Maybe I should have tried harder. This is your brain protecting your self-image, not providing accurate analysis. 2. Rosy retrospection. Again, in the absence of current negative experiences, your brain starts highlighting all the positive memories. The laughter, the connection, the moments when it felt good. What your brain conveniently forgets. Those moments were the exception, not the rule. They were islands in an ocean of disappointment. 3. Fear of the unknown. The relationship was painful, but it was predictably painful. You knew what to expect. You'd adapted. Your new life is unpredictable, and humans are wired to prefer known pain over unknown possibility. Your doubt is fear wearing the mask of rational consideration. The antidote to doubt. Create a decision validation document. Answer these questions in writing. What were my primary reasons for leaving? Did those reasons exist for weeks, months, or years? Did I communicate about these issues? Did anything fundamentally change after those communications? If my best friend described this exact situation, would I tell them to stay or leave? Am I doubting my decision based on new information, or based on fear and selective memory? Am I romanticizing the past because the present is uncomfortable? Philosopher Soren Kierkegaard said, "Life can only be understood backwards, but it must be lived forwards." Stop looking backward for validation. Look forward with trust that you made the best decision with the information you had. And you did. You absolutely did. The loneliness. When silence feels like suffocation. Let's be honest about what you're feeling right now. Crushing, suffocating, terrifying loneliness. Your phone isn't lighting up with their messages. Nobody's asking about your day. The weekends stretch out empty. Your routine has a gaping hole where they used to be, and it feels like drowning. This loneliness is making you question everything, because at least when you were with them, you weren't alone. At least there was someone. At least the silence wasn't this loud. Here's what you need to understand about this loneliness. It's temporary. What feels permanent right now is actually a transition phase. The loneliness will decrease as you rebuild your life, reconnect with yourself, and eventually connect with people who value you. It's informative. This loneliness is showing you how much of your identity and daily routine was organized around this person. That's unhealthy dependency, and you're breaking free from it. It's not the same as being alone with them. There's a difference between solitary loneliness and lonely in company. You were lonely in that relationship too. You just had the illusion of companionship. Author Mandy Hale teaches, "You'll learn, as you get older, that rules are made to be broken. Be bold enough to live life on your terms, and never ever apologize for it. Go against the grain, refuse to conform, take the road less traveled instead of the well-beaten path. Laugh in the face of adversity, and leap before you look. Dance as though everybody is watching. March to the beat of your own drummer, and stubbornly refuse to fit in." The antidote to loneliness. Don't try to fill the void immediately. Sit with it. Let yourself feel it. This is where you learn that you can survive being alone. But also, schedule social activities, even when you don't feel like it. Reconnect with friends you neglected during the relationship. Join communities around your interests. Develop a relationship with yourself, the one person who will never leave you. The loneliness is your nervous system adjusting to a new reality. Trust the process. The discomfort is growth. The backlash. When other people have opinions about your decision. And then there's everyone else. The people who think they know better than you what you should do with your life. The mutual friend, I just think you guys should talk. You were so good together. The family member, relationships take work. You can't just give up when things get hard. The ex's friend, you really hurt them. They're devastated. Don't you care? The social media commentator. Someone who barely knows either of you offering unsolicited advice. Your response to all of them? Nothing. Not because you can't defend yourself. Because their opinions are irrelevant. These people weren't in your relationship. They didn't experience the daily erosion of your self-worth. They didn't feel the constant low-grade anxiety. They didn't count how many times their needs were dismissed. They saw the highlight reel. You lived the behind-the-scenes footage. Author Brené Brown teaches, if you are not in the arena getting your ass kicked on occasion, I'm not interested in or open to your feedback. There are a million cheap seats in the world today filled with people who will never be brave with their own lives but will spend every ounce of energy they have hurling advice and judgment at those of us trying to dare greatly. The people criticizing your decision are sitting in the cheap seats. They're not in the arena. They don't get a vote. How to handle backlash. For mutual friends, I appreciate your concern, but this decision is between me and them. I'm not going to discuss the details, and I need you to respect that. For family, I know you want what's best for me. What's best for me is honoring my decision without having to defend it repeatedly. Please trust that I know my own life. For the ex's friends/family, I understand they're hurting. I'm not discussing our relationship with people who aren't in it. Please respect my boundary. For social media, block, delete, ignore. You owe internet strangers exactly nothing. And if people can't respect your boundaries, limit or eliminate contact with them too. You don't need a chorus of voices second-guessing you when your own mind is already doing that work. When they come back. The hoovering phase. Let's talk about what happens when they realize you're serious. When the reality sinks in that you're actually gone. This is called hoovering, a term from narcissistic abuse recovery, named after the Hoover vacuum, because they're trying to suck you back in. Hoovering looks like the apology. I'm so sorry. I realize now what I lost. I was an idiot. Please give me another chance. The promise. I'm in therapy now. I'm really working on myself. I'm becoming the person you needed me to be. The emergency. Something terrible happened. I need you. Please, just this once. The breadcrumb. Random texts with inside jokes, songs that remind them of you. I saw this and thought of you. The grand gesture. Showing up at your place, sending flowers, public declarations of love. All of it is designed to trigger your empathy, your hope, your nostalgia, and pull you back in. Your response to all hoovering attempts. Nothing. Absolute radio silence. Not because you want to hurt them. Because engagement of any kind, even leave me alone, rewards the behavior and teaches them that if they just try hard enough, you'll respond. Gray rock technique. If you must interact, shared children, workplace, etc., be as boring and unresponsive as a gray rock. Short answers. No emotional content. No openings for further conversation. Author Shahida Arabi, who studies toxic relationships, warns, the love bombing and grand gestures will return during the idealization phase of the abuse cycle, but they're temporary. The idealization phase is just the setup for the devaluation that inevitably follows. If they truly wanted to change, they would have done it when you were asking them to, not when you stopped asking and started leaving. The what if they actually change? Question. This is the doubt that will haunt you most. What if you left right before they finally changed? What if this breakup is the wake-up call they needed? What if they're really in therapy and really working on themselves? What if 6 months from now, they're the person you always needed them to be? What if you miss out on the relationship you always wanted because you didn't wait long enough? Here's the hard truth. Maybe they will change. People do change. Sometimes losing someone they love is the catalyst they need. Sometimes the pain of consequences finally breaks through their denial. But here's what matters more. Will they change enough, fast enough, permanently enough to make waiting worth your while? Because even if they change, it will take months, possibly years, of sustained effort. There's no guarantee the change is permanent. The damage to your trust has already been done. You've already sacrificed years waiting for change that didn't come. And here's the question nobody asks. What will you have become while you were waiting? Will you have grown, healed, moved forward? Or will you have stayed stuck, putting your life on hold, waiting to see if they'll become who they should have been all along? The answer: if they change, genuinely, sustainably, demonstrably change over a period of at least 6 months to a year, they can reach out and demonstrate that change. Not through promises, through evidence, through actions, patterns, therapy receipts, changed behavior witnessed by others, through becoming a different person, not just performing temporary improvement. And then, and only then, if you're still available, emotionally and actually, if you haven't moved on, if you feel genuinely called to give it another chance, you can make that decision from a place of power, not desperation. But right now, your job isn't to wait around to see if they change. Your job is to change your own life. The strategies for surviving the hardest weeks. Let's get practical. Here's how you survive the guilt, doubt, loneliness, and backlash without going back. Week 1 to 2. Crisis mode. No contact. Absolutely none. Check in with your support people daily. Read your reality document every morning. Physical self-care is non-negotiable. Eat, sleep, move. Expect to feel terrible. You will. That's normal. Week 3 to 4. Stabilization. Establish new routines that don't include them. Start therapy if you're not already in it. Begin journaling about who you're becoming. Allow yourself to grieve, but don't let grief become identity. Week 5 to 8. Rebuilding. Reconnect with hobbies you abandoned. Invest in friendships. Set small goals unrelated to the relationship. Notice the moments when you feel okay. They're increasing. Month 3 plus. Integration. Reflect on what this relationship taught you about boundaries. Identify your non-negotiables for future relationships. Notice how much mental space you have now. Recognize that you're surviving what you thought would destroy you. The truth about getting through this. Here's what nobody tells you. You're going to have bad days even months after leaving. Days when the guilt resurfaces. Days when you convince yourself you overreacted. Days when the loneliness feels unbearable. Days when you almost reach out. This doesn't mean you made the wrong decision. It means you're human, healing isn't linear, and grief doesn't have an expiration date. But here's what else is true. Those days will become less frequent. The intensity will decrease. The moments of peace will outnumber the moments of doubt. And one day, maybe not soon, but eventually, you'll realize you haven't thought about them in days. That the guilt is gone. That you're not just surviving, you're thriving. That you're building a life so full, so rich, so aligned with your values that the relationship you left feels like a lifetime ago. Poet Warsan Shire wrote, "My alone feels so good, I'll only have you if you're sweeter than my solitude." You're learning what she knew. That peace with yourself is better than chaos with someone else. In Chapter 9, we're going to talk about what comes next. How to rebuild your life after walking away. How to rediscover who you are. How to trust again. How to create a life so beautiful that leaving becomes the best decision you ever made. But right now, just survive this moment. Then the next one. And the next one. That's all healing is. Surviving one moment at a time until suddenly, you're not just surviving anymore. You're living. Chapter 9. rebuilding your life after walking away. There's a Japanese art form called kintsugi, the practice of repairing broken pottery with gold. The philosophy is that the breakage and repair are part of the object's history and should be honored rather than hidden. The cracks are filled with precious metal, making the piece more valuable than it was before it broke. More beautiful because of the breaking, not despite it. You are kintsugi right now. You've been broken. But what you're about to do, the way you're about to rebuild yourself with intention, wisdom, and self-love, will make you more valuable, more beautiful, more powerful than you were before. Not because the breaking didn't hurt, but because of what you choose to do with the pieces. Step 1. Rediscovering who you are, excavation phase. Let's start with the most fundamental question. Who are you without them? If that question makes you uncomfortable, if you don't have an immediate answer, that's exactly why we're starting here. During the relationship, you likely adjusted your personality to keep the peace, suppressed interests they didn't share or appreciate, adopted their opinions to avoid conflict, organized your life around their schedule, needs, and preferences, became a supporting character in your own story. You weren't consciously erasing yourself. You were doing what people do in unbalanced relationships. You were shrinking to fit into the small space they made available for you. The excavation process. Exercise 1. The before them inventory. Make a list of who you were before this relationship. What did you love doing? What made you laugh? What did you dream about? Who were your friends? What music did you listen to? What parts of yourself did you lose along the way? Don't judge what you find. Just observe. You're archaeologist of your own life, uncovering artifacts of your authentic self. Exercise 2. The suppressed interests list. What did you want to try but didn't because they weren't interested? They made fun of it. It would take time away from them. It wasn't practical or didn't serve the relationship. You'd internalized their judgment as your own. Write it all down. Everything from learn pottery, to travel solo, to cut my hair short, to spend entire Sundays reading without guilt. These aren't random interests. These are breadcrumbs back to yourself. Exercise 3. The who am I? Free write. Set a timer for 10 minutes. Write continuously without editing. Without this relationship, I am. The things that matter most to me are. When I'm my most authentic self, I feel most alive when, if nobody was watching or judging, I would. You might not have complete answers yet. That's okay. You're not remembering who you are. You're discovering who you're becoming. Author Glennon Doyle teaches, you are not supposed to be who you were last week, last year. You're supposed to be who you are right now. This is your moment to become. Step 2. Filling the void, creation phase. Now you have all this time, all this mental space, all this emotional energy that was being consumed by managing that relationship. And it feels terrifying. You're used to the noise, the constant checking your phone, the analyzing their behavior, the preparing for their moods. Silence feels wrong. Stillness feels like abandonment. This is where most people make their first mistake. They rush to fill the void with another person, another relationship, another distraction. Don't. This void is sacred. This emptiness is where transformation happens. You can't build a new life in a space that's still cluttered with old coping mechanisms. How to intentionally fill the space. Create a yes list. For the next 90 days, say yes to invitations you'd normally decline, activities slightly outside your comfort zone, opportunities to meet new people, experiences you've been putting off, things that scare you a little, and a no list. For the same 90 days, say no to dating apps or new romantic relationships, people who drain you, obligations rooted in guilt, anything that feels like you're shrinking yourself again. anything that distracts you from this rebuilding process. Author Cheryl Strayed wrote in Tiny Beautiful Things, "The useless days will add up to something. The shitty waitressing jobs. The hours writing in your journal. The long meandering walks. The hours reading poetry and story collections and novels and dead people's diaries and wondering about sex and God and whether you should shave under your arms or not. These things are your becoming. Everything you do right now, even the small, seemingly insignificant things, is building who you're becoming. Develop new rituals." You had rituals with them. Morning texts, Friday night dinners, Sunday routines. Those rituals are gone, and the absence is disorienting. Create new ones that are yours alone. Morning pages, 3 pages of stream of consciousness writing. Solo coffee dates with a book. Sunday hikes or walks. Midweek movie nights. A Saturday morning routine that makes you feel alive. These rituals aren't just activities. They're promises to yourself that you're worth investing in. Step 3. Rebuilding your support system, connection phase. Here's an uncomfortable truth. You probably neglected your friendships during that relationship. Not because you're a bad friend, but because they demanded so much of your time and energy. You were embarrassed about the relationship and withdrew. Your friends tried to warn you and you got defensive. You couldn't be fully honest about what you were experiencing. Now you need those friendships back. And rebuilding them requires humility and honesty. How to reconnect. The honest conversation. Reach out to friends you've distanced yourself from. I realize I've been absent/distant. The relationship I just left took a lot more from me than I admitted, even to myself. I'm working on rebuilding my life, and I'd love to reconnect if you're open to it. I understand if you need time, but I wanted you to know that I see how I pulled away, and I'm sorry. Most people will respond with grace. Those who don't, that's information too. Build your advisory board. You need different people for different needs. The truth teller who calls out your bullshit lovingly. The cheerleader who reminds you how far you've come. The wise elder, not age, but wisdom, who's been through this. The fun distractor who makes you laugh until you cry. The therapist who provides professional guidance. You can't process all of this alone. You weren't designed to. Author Johann Hari's research found the opposite of addiction is not sobriety. It is human connection. You were potentially addicted to that relationship, to that person, to the drama. The antidote is authentic connection with people who actually value you. Step 4. Reclaiming your physical space, environment phase. Your physical environment holds energy from the relationship. Every corner of your space has memories embedded in it. You need to reclaim it. The purge. Get rid of their belongings, donate, trash, return, just get them out. Remove photos, physical and digital. Delete text threads and old emails. Anything that triggers you, gone. Don't keep things just in case. That's leaving the door open. Close it. The refresh. You don't need to redecorate your entire life, but change something. Rearrange furniture. New bedding, this one's important. Paint a wall. Add plants. Create a space that reflects who you're becoming, not who you were. Create a sanctuary. Designate one space in your home, a corner, a chair, a whole room if possible, as your rebuilding sanctuary. This is where you journal, meditate, read, process emotions, connect with yourself without judgment. Make it beautiful. Make it intentional. Make it yours. Environmental psychology research shows that our physical environment significantly impacts our mental health and behavior. You're not being superficial by caring about your space. You're being strategic. Step 5. Establishing new standards, boundary phase. You learned something invaluable from that relationship. What you will absolutely never tolerate again. Now you need to codify it. Create your non-negotiables document. This isn't about being rigid or unreasonable. This is about honoring what you learned the hard way. My non-negotiables in relationships. Mutual respect is baseline, not something I earn. My needs are treated with the same importance as theirs. Communication is honest, even when uncomfortable. Effort is reciprocal. Boundaries are respected the first time. I am valued consistently, not just when it's convenient. My non-negotiables with myself. I don't explain away red flags. I don't stay in situations that require me to shrink. I trust my gut, even when others disagree. I choose peace over the illusion of connection. I never betray myself to keep someone else comfortable. My non-negotiables in friendships. Reciprocity and mutual investment. Respect for my boundaries. Honesty, even when it's difficult. They add to my life. They don't drain it. Author Brené Brown teaches, daring to set boundaries is about having the courage to love ourselves, even when we risk disappointing others. Your boundaries aren't selfishness. They're self-respect. Step 6. Processing the lessons. Integration phase. Here's where most people get stuck. They either refuse to see any positive in the experience, all victimhood, or excuse the abuse by calling it growth, toxic positivity. Neither is healthy. The truth is more nuanced. This relationship hurt you and taught you. Both things are true. The integration process. What this relationship taught me about myself. How I respond to being undervalued. My patterns of people-pleasing or conflict avoidance. Where my boundaries were weak. What I'm willing to tolerate when I'm afraid of being alone. The difference between who I am authentically and who I become when I'm trying to earn love. What this relationship taught me about others. How to spot red flags earlier. The difference between potential and pattern. That words without actions are just manipulation. That some people won't change because they don't want to. That walking away is sometimes the most loving thing I can do. What I'm taking forward. Clearer boundaries. Stronger sense of self-worth. Better understanding of my needs. Less tolerance for breadcrumbs. More trust in my own judgment. What I'm leaving behind. The belief that love means suffering. The need to fix broken people. The fear of being alone. The assumption that everyone deserves infinite chances. The version of myself who settled for less than she deserved. Poet Maya Angelou said, "Do the best you can until you know better. Then when you know better, do better." You know better now. Everything you do from here forward reflects that knowing. Step 7. Rediscovering joy, pleasure phase. You've been in survival mode for so long, managing their moods, walking on eggshells, bracing for disappointment, that you've forgotten what joy feels like. Not happiness dependent on external circumstances. Joy. The deep, soul-level experience of being fully alive. The joy excavation process. Make a joy list. Things that make you feel alive. Not productive things. Not impressive things. Just things that light you up. Examples. Dancing in your kitchen. The smell of coffee in the morning. Really good bread with butter. Thunderstorms. Deep conversations at 2 a.m. The feeling of clean sheets. Then actively pursue these things. Build your life around joy, not just productivity or healing. Practice pleasure without purpose. Do things purely because they feel good. Take a bath in the middle of the afternoon. Eat dessert for breakfast. Buy yourself flowers. Spend a whole day reading. Do nothing and don't feel guilty about it. You've been so focused on being enough for someone else that you forgot you're already enough, just by existing. Author Glennon Doyle. I'm not sure I even knew what joy was before I learned what peace was. They are not the same thing. Peace is feeling whole, content, free from internal and external war. Joy is feeling lighter than air, exuberant, untouchable. You're learning both. Step 8. Dating yourself, romance phase. Before you're ready to date anyone else, you need to date yourself. This isn't metaphorical self-care advice. This is literal. Take yourself on dates. Dinner at a nice restaurant. Table for one. Movies alone. Weekend trips solo. Museum visits. Experiences you'd plan for someone you're romancing. Why? Because you're learning that you're worth investing in, worth planning for, worth showing up for. You're also learning you're good company. The discomfort you feel doing this? That's the part that needs healing. If being alone with yourself feels unbearable, you haven't healed from the relationship. You're just looking for another distraction. Author Warsan Shire, "My alone feels so good, I'll only have you if you're sweeter than my solitude." Get to the place where your alone is so good that another person would have to be extraordinary to improve upon it. The timeline nobody wants to hear. People will ask, how long does it take to rebuild after a relationship like that? There's no formula. Not half the length of the relationship, or 1 month per year, or any other neat calculation. But here's what's generally true. Months 1 to 3. Survival mode. Raw grief. Intense doubt. Just getting through each day. Months 4 to 6. Stabilization. New routines forming. Glimpses of who you're becoming. Still hard, but less intense. Months 7 to 12. Reconstruction. Actively building your new life. More good days than bad. Occasional setbacks but quicker recovery. Year 2 plus. Integration. The relationship becomes part of your history, not your identity. You've become someone new, someone stronger. But here's the key. These timelines only work if you're actively doing the work, not just waiting for time to pass. Measuring your progress. You'll know you're healing when you can think about them without your stomach dropping. You can see their name without panic. You've gone days without thinking about them. Your first thought in the morning isn't about them. You're building a life you don't want to escape from. You feel excitement about your future. You trust your judgment again. You've stopped explaining yourself to people who weren't there. You look in the mirror and recognize yourself again. And the biggest sign, you're grateful you left. Not immediately. Not in the raw, painful early days. But eventually. Because you look at who you've become, and you realize, you couldn't have become this person if you'd stayed. The truth about rebuilding. Rebuilding your life after walking away isn't about returning to who you were before the relationship. That person is gone. And that's okay. You're not trying to recover yourself. You're trying to discover yourself. The person you're becoming has battle scars that turned into wisdom, boundaries forged in pain, self-worth earned through choosing herself, compassion deepened by her own suffering, strength she didn't know she had until she needed it. This version of you is better, not because the pain was good, but because of what you chose to do with it. You chose to leave. You chose to stay gone. You chose to rebuild. And now you're choosing to become someone who never settles for less than she deserves again. In Chapter 10, we're bringing everything together. We're talking about becoming the person who never tolerates being undervalued again. Not through bitterness or walls, but through genuine transformation. But right now, just know this. You're not broken. You're breaking open. And what's emerging is more beautiful than what broke. Chapter 10. Becoming someone who never tolerates being undervalued again. You've come so far. You walked away when everything in you wanted to stay. You survived the guilt, the doubt, the loneliness. You rebuilt yourself piece by piece. But here's the question that matters most. Was this just a painful chapter in your story, or was this the transformation that changed everything? Because the real test isn't whether you can leave someone who doesn't value you. The real test is whether you'll ever let it happen again. This final chapter isn't about the relationship you left. It's about every relationship you'll have from this moment forward. It's about becoming someone so grounded in her worth, so clear in her boundaries, so committed to her peace that undervaluing you isn't just unlikely, it's impossible. This is where you close the door on who you were and step fully into who you're becoming. This is where everything changes. There's a story about a farmer who found a baby eagle and raised it with his chickens. The eagle grew up scratching in the dirt, eating chicken feed, never looking up at the sky. One day, a naturalist visited and saw the eagle. "That's not a chicken," he said. "That's an eagle. It belongs in the sky." The farmer disagreed. "It's lived with chickens its whole life. It thinks it's a chicken." The naturalist took the eagle to a high cliff and held it up to the sky. At first, the eagle looked down at the chickens, comfortable and familiar. But then it saw another eagle soaring overhead, and something shifted. It spread its wings, caught the wind, and flew. "You are that eagle. You've been living with chickens, settling for scraps, keeping your head down, forgetting you were made for the sky. But now you've seen what you're capable of. You've felt your wings." This chapter is about making sure you never forget you can fly. About ensuring you never settle for the chicken coop again when the whole sky is waiting. The foundation. Internalizing your worth. Everything we've discussed in this book, the red flags, the boundaries, the exit strategy, the rebuilding, all of it collapses if you don't fundamentally believe you deserve better. Not intellectually. Not as a nice idea you agree with in theory. Viscerally. Bone deep. Unshakable. The worth work. Most people approach self-worth backward. They think, when I achieve X, when I look like Y, when I have Z, then I'll be worthy. That's not how worth works. Your worth isn't earned. It isn't conditional. It isn't based on what you accomplish, how you look, who loves you, or how perfectly you perform. You are worthy because you exist. Full stop. Author Brené Brown spent years researching shame and worthiness. Her conclusion: worthiness doesn't have prerequisites. But knowing this intellectually and believing it emotionally are different things. Here's how you internalize it. Daily worth affirmations that actually work. Most affirmations fail because they're too far from your current belief system. Your brain rejects them as lies. Instead, use bridge affirmations, statements that honor where you are while moving you toward where you want to be. Instead of, "I am completely worthy," which your brain might reject, try, "I am learning to see my worth." Instead of, "I deserve amazing love," try, "I'm becoming someone who recognizes what I deserve." Instead of, "I am enough," try, "I'm discovering that I've always been enough." These aren't less powerful. They're more honest. And honesty is what your nervous system will accept. The mirror practice. Every morning, look yourself in the eye in the mirror and say, "I see you. I value you. I choose you." It will feel ridiculous at first. Do it anyway. You're rewriting years of programming that told you everyone else's needs matter more than yours. This is deprogramming work, and it's not optional. Evidence collection. Your brain has been collecting evidence for years that you're not enough. Now you're going to collect counter-evidence. Keep a worth document where you record times you set a boundary and honored it, moments you chose yourself over people-pleasing, situations where you trusted your judgment, every single instance where you acted like someone who knows her worth. When doubt creeps in, and it will, this document is your proof that you're changing. The shift from external to internal validation. For most of your life, you've probably measured your worth by external metrics. Do people like me? Am I meeting expectations? Am I making others happy? Am I enough for them? That's the question that needs to die. Am I enough for them? Replace it with, are they enough for me? This isn't arrogance. It's appropriate self-regard. Author Nathaniel Branden, who pioneered self-esteem research, wrote, Of all the judgments we pass in life, none is more important than the judgment we pass on ourselves. Your judgment of yourself matters more than anyone else's judgment of you. The validation shift exercise. For the next 30 days, every time you catch yourself seeking external validation, pause and ask, what would it look like to validate myself right now? Seeking their approval for your decision? Give yourself approval. Waiting for someone to notice your effort? Notice it yourself. Looking for someone to tell you you're doing well? Tell yourself. This feels strange at first because you've been taught that self-validation is arrogant. It's not. It's freedom. The practice. Recognizing red flags immediately. You know what red flags look like now. You've got the list from chapter 3 memorized. But knowing and recognizing in real time are different skills. You need to develop what psychologists call threat detection calibration. The ability to spot danger signals before you're emotionally invested. The early warning system. Physical red flags. Trust your body stomach dropping when their name appears. Tension in your shoulders during conversations. Difficulty sleeping after interactions. The vague sense that something is off. Your body knows before your brain rationalizes. Listen to it. Behavioral red flags. First 3 months. Inconsistency between words and actions. Difficulty respecting small boundaries. Defensiveness when concerns are raised. More interest in being validated than in validating you. You're doing most of the initiating, planning, accommodating. The 3-strike rule. Not 3 chances to disrespect you. 3 data points to confirm a pattern. 1 instance of dismissing your feelings? Notice it. 2nd instance? That's a pattern forming. 3rd instance? That's who they are. Believe them. You don't need to wait for strike 10, 20, or 50. 3 is enough information. The 48-hour integration period. After any interaction that feels off, give yourself 48 hours before making excuses for it. Don't immediately explain it away. Sit with the discomfort. Let yourself feel it. After 48 hours, if you still feel unsettled, that feeling is information, not overreaction. Author Gavin de Becker, who studies violence prediction, wrote in The Gift of Fear, "Intuition is always right in at least 2 important ways. It is always in response to something. It always has your best interest at heart. Your intuition has been right all along. You just learned to ignore it. Never again." The boundary. Making your standards non-negotiable. You've set boundaries before, and then negotiated them down when someone pushed back. That ends now. The difference between boundaries and requests. A request: "I'd appreciate it if you'd text when you're running late." A boundary: "I need communication about schedule changes." If that's not something you can do consistently, we're not compatible. Notice the difference? A request hopes they'll comply. A boundary states what you need and the consequence if it's not met. Boundaries aren't about controlling others. They're about controlling your own participation in relationships that don't serve you. Your unbreakable boundaries. Customize for yourself. I will not stay in relationships where my needs are consistently treated as optional. Effort is one-sided. My concerns are met with defensiveness rather than dialogue. I feel worse about myself over time. I have to shrink myself to be accepted. And here's the crucial part. You enforce these from day one. Not after you're in love. Not after you've invested months. From the very beginning. Because here's what you know now. People show you who they are early. The red flags are always there. You just have to be willing to see them and act on them. The revolution. Choosing yourself first. The most radical thing you can do in a culture that teaches women, empaths, and caregivers to sacrifice themselves is this. Choose yourself. Every single time. Not selfishly, not cruelly, but consistently. When there's a conflict between what they want and what you need, choose yourself. When there's a decision between their comfort and your peace, choose yourself. When there's a choice between explaining yourself one more time and simply walking away, choose yourself. This doesn't mean you're incapable of compromise or sacrifice. It means you don't compromise on your non-negotiables and you don't sacrifice your well-being. The self-first practice. Every decision, ask, is this honoring me or abandoning me? Saying yes to plans you don't want, abandoning you. Accepting treatment you know is disrespectful, abandoning you. Staying in conversations that make you feel small, abandoning you. Honoring yourself looks like saying no without over-explaining, leaving situations that don't serve you, trusting your judgment over others' opinions, making decisions based on your peace, not their approval. Author Glennon Doyle. Every time you're given a choice between disappointing someone else and disappointing yourself, your duty is to disappoint that someone else. Read that again. Your duty, not your option, your duty, is to disappoint others rather than betray yourself. The filter. Evaluating new relationships. You'll date again. You'll open yourself to new relationships. But you'll do it differently this time. The evaluation framework. Within the first month, observe. Do they follow through on what they say they'll do? Respond to your boundaries with respect or resistance. Show interest in your life beyond what you can do for them. Take responsibility when they make mistakes. Add to your peace or subtract from it. The comparison test. Compare how you feel before seeing them versus after. When you're with them versus when you're alone. In their presence versus with your closest friends. About yourself now versus before you met them. Healthy relationships should make you feel more yourself, not less. The friend test. If your best friend described this exact dynamic, the same ratio of effort, the same patterns of behavior, the same way this person treats them, what would you tell them to do? Then take your own advice. The future projection. If nothing about this person changes, if what you're experiencing right now is exactly what you'll experience in 5 years, is this enough? Not their potential, not who they could become, who they are right now today. If the answer is no, the relationship is no. The transformation. From victim to victor. Let's address the final piece. Your identity. You were undervalued. You stayed too long. You accepted less than you deserved. Those are facts, but they're not your identity. You're not the person who was mistreated, the one who stayed when she should have left, the victim of someone else's inability to love properly. You're the person who recognized she deserved better, found the courage to leave, did the hard work of rebuilding, transformed pain into wisdom, became someone who will never tolerate being undervalued again. That's your identity now, not what was done to you. What you did with it. Author Viktor Frankl, who survived the Holocaust, wrote, "When we are no longer able to change a situation, we are challenged to change ourselves." You changed yourself. You became someone new. The lessons. A brief summary of everything you've learned. The commitment. Your promise to yourself. Before we close, I need you to make a commitment. Not to me. Not to anyone else. To yourself. Say this out loud. I promise to never again accept less than I deserve. I promise to trust my intuition, even when others dismiss it. I promise to enforce my boundaries, even when it disappoints people. I promise to choose my peace over their approval. I promise to see red flags and act on them immediately. I promise to value myself as much as I've valued everyone else. I promise to become someone who knows her worth and never negotiates it away. This is your vow. Honor it. The truth about what comes next. I'm not going to tell you that you'll never be hurt again. You will. I'm not going to promise that every future relationship will be healthy. Some won't be. But here's what I will promise. You'll recognize the unhealthy ones faster. You'll leave sooner. You'll trust yourself more. You'll stop explaining away what you know to be true. And you'll never, ever stay as long as you did this time. Because you're not the same person who entered that relationship. You're someone who knows what she deserves, what she won't tolerate, what peace feels like, what it costs to betray herself, and that she'll never pay that price again. Author Maya Angelou said, "I did then what I knew how to do. Now that I know better, I do better." You know better now. Everything changes from here. The final word. You were always enough. One last thing before you close this book and step fully into your new life. You were always enough. Before them, during them, after them, always. The relationship that ended didn't end because you weren't enough. It ended because they weren't capable of valuing what you offered. That's not a reflection of your worth. It's a reflection of their capacity. And now you know, you don't need to be valued by everyone. You just need to value yourself. When you do that, when you truly, deeply, unshakably value yourself, everything changes. You stop accepting breadcrumbs. You stop explaining away disrespect. You stop waiting for people to see your worth. You start living like someone who already knows it. And the people who are meant for you, they'll see it too. Not because you convinced them. Not because you earned it. Because you carry yourself like someone who knows exactly what she's worth. And anyone who doesn't see it, that's information. And you'll act on it immediately. The beginning. This is the end of the book. But it's the beginning of everything else. You're standing at the edge of your new life. The one you've built from the rubble of what broke you. And you have a choice. You can go back to old patterns, old fears, old ways of shrinking yourself to fit into other people's limited vision of who you should be. Or you can step forward into this new version of yourself, the one who knows her worth, honors her boundaries, and refuses to settle for less than she deserves. I know which one you'll choose. Because you didn't read this entire book, do this painful work, walk away from what was killing you, and rebuild yourself from scratch just to go back to accepting crumbs. You did all of this because you're becoming someone extraordinary, someone who values herself, someone who trusts herself, someone who chooses herself, someone who will never ever tolerate being undervalued again. That person is you, not someday, not when you've healed more, not when you've proven yourself. You are the person who walked away. You are the person who survived. You are the person who rebuilt. You are the person who knows her worth. Now go live like it. Walk away from anyone who doesn't value you. And walk toward the life that's been waiting for you all along. You've got this. You've always had this. Now go be everything you were meant to be.